Welcome to the live stream on today, July 5th, 2017. My name is Dana Morningstar. If you are new here, we do this every single Wednesday night for about 2 to 3 hours, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So welcome. If you have a question for the live stream, you can email it to me at deardana@thriveafterabuse.com. And I will do my best to answer it on the show here. And I just realized I have the wrong date down on YouTube. But now we're good. We're good. So lots of people are popping on. Hello, hello, AJ, Antonia, Lou, Missouri Cowboy, Cecilia, Dora, who says I'm finally on time. Antonia, Ileana, my research, Stacy, hello, welcome, welcome. B Jupiter, Tom, Michelle. Lots of people are hopping on tonight. It's awesome to see you guys. Did you have a good 4th of July for those that are in the US? Did you get any sleep or did you have fireworks in your neighborhood nonstop? I hope you guys had a good time. And let's see here. Before I get going, I wanted to share some stuff with you guys. So for those that had been asking about podcasts, when I'm going to start getting going on that again, they're up and going. So podcasts are full effect. The goal is to put out 3 a week, and you can find my podcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere people go for podcasts, they are there. So that's super exciting. And yeah, podcasts are up and going. And then yes. Geez, how could I forget? Okay, the other big thing I'm super excited about. So Cecilia, was it you? Somebody, I feel like it was Cecilia, but I could be wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong. Had mentioned a while ago that I should get some stuff made up with like the Phoenix logo and whatever. So I find it's been like, it took me a year and a half, but I did it. So I got some stuff made up. So this is can you see this? This is the cup, and there's different styles of this design. So there's the cup with the logo, the Phoenix on the front, and then the back. This one in particular says good vibes only. So yeah, super cute. I'm excited about that. Yay. And then I have a t-shirt. Let me see. I'll stand up so you guys can see it. It has the Phoenix. It has a modified Phoenix on the front of it because do you see how these, like the wings curl over? But if you have big boobs, I didn't really want it like curling around. Yeah, that's why. So yeah. And then I made another shirt. I actually have quite a few shirts. It was really fun. I was on a roll. This was like my new favorite thing to do. So I have another shirt that just says like good vibes only that I made. And again, there's like, if you go, you can find the link to all that stuff down below. It's on Teespring, and then the link down below. So it's teespring.com/stores/thriveafterabuse. And you can find my stuff. Cecilia says, oh, I love the fit. Yeah, I wanted like a slouchy, just comfy shirt and not like a regular t-shirt. So, but I made like I said, a bunch of different t-shirts. So these two have like the scoop neck, and they're just comfy shirts. Oh, and then wait, there's more. This one, the good vibes only shirt, at the bottom has that Phoenix. So I liked that. I wanted something that was subtle, like that spoke to kind of recovery and just that reminder of like from here on out, it's good vibes only, you know? Like if you got bad energy, you got to go. So that was, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So check it out if you're interested. Or if you have design ideas, let me know too. Let's see. Oh, awesome. Diane says, hey, y'all, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Just got back from Jamaica to attend my high school reunion. My narcissistic ex was there with his current wife, wife number 3. That was to make me squirm, but I handled it like a champ. I am free. Awesome. Yay, you. That is fantastic. Don't you love those victories like that? You're like, yep, going to be here. I'm going to have a great time and not going to get caught up in your chaos and your drama. So, yeah. Let's see. Somebody said, I forget where the comment just scrolled by. Said, Dana, you look so happy and oh, Karen says, hello from Germany. You look great, happy, and relaxed. Thank you. I think a lot of it is yesterday I went and took my little kayak and went with some friends, and we floated down the river and watched the fireworks on the river. It was super chill. So anytime I get a chance to be out on the water, like that to me is just, it's so rejuvenating and is pure bliss. So thanks. Henry says, I've been following you for a while. I had to make a new account because I was being bothered via YouTube. Yeah, that's the challenge with a lot of this stuff is kind of the flying monkeys or even the narcissistic person just not letting up. I think it's probably a good idea for most people to create a fake account just to prevent that, because it happens to a lot. And Diane says, thanks, y'all. This group has been a tremendous help with my healing. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad. It's so helpful to be around a bunch of other people that can relate and that have been there, done that. Let's see. Henry says, I remember watching your videos, crying in agony, wishing my life would end. Now I feel completely free. Wow. Well, I'm really glad that you've made like so much progress. That's so huge, from going from like the depths of despair like that to a place where you can realize that you didn't lose a good thing, you know, that this person, that they were not for you, and that life there's so much out there that's positive and empowering and nourishing that is for you. So I'm really glad that you're able to view it as you being free, because you really are. You really are. Let's see. Oh, Missouri Cowboy, good question. He says, any updates on a possible retreat as far as a date, location, speakers, or any of that? I don't know. We were talking about that a little bit in the Facebook group, and I am open to ideas. Some people had mentioned, so here's kind of what I was thinking about that. And here's the challenge with that. So you have Melanie Tanya Evans, who I believe is in Australia. And then you have Spartan Life Coach, who is somewhere in the UK, I believe. So they're very far away. So getting them to get together, if you guys wanted those two to do some sort of joint conference, might be somewhat of a challenge cost-wise. I'm totally open for it. It's just something that we need to factor in. Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of which, it was brought to my attention that there is somebody doing a GoFundMe account trying to get together a bunch of speakers on like narcissistic abuse. They want to put together some sort of event. And that person, I'm just going to assume that they're well-intended. However, I would really caution you guys against funding something like that, because here's the deal. With a GoFundMe account, you don't get your money back. So even if they don't raise the full amount, that money's gone, versus Kickstarter, where if somebody doesn't raise their goal amount, that money is refunded to people. not to mention, this is just a random person who's trying to supposedly put together a get together. And there's a lot more that goes on to pulling something like this together than just renting like a hotel room. Because a lot of the bigger speakers in on narcissistic abuse, they, like I was just saying, Melanie and Richard, they would need to have all of like their airfare, their hotel, their food, all of that stuff covered, plus like a speaking fee. So just raising money to cover a hotel room, like there's probably a lot of other fees there that person hasn't taken into account. So I just, if I ever put together an event that I'm going to be attending, like you'll hear it from me. So I would just caution you guys against donating funds to a total stranger who wants to put together an event, because odds are it may not be legit, for one, and then for two, it might not happen because they don't know if there's speaking fees for certain speakers, or they don't know if, I for one would want security there. So there's just a lot of things to figure out. Let's see. So anyways, so we were in the group, we were thinking about a conference in possibly Las Vegas. Reason being, it's cheap to fly in there, it's cheap to stay there, and it's kind of like a resort area. Although I know like the downside of Las Vegas is I know it can be a real big trigger for a lot of people, but Las Vegas is an option. And then I was thinking it might actually be the most affordable and maybe even relaxing way to go to see about booking like a block of rooms in like an all-inclusive place in like Cancun. I know that might sound really, over the top, but that might actually be the most affordable way to go. So that's a thought. And we also talked about maybe seeing if we could book like a block of rooms on maybe like a cruise ship, something that's all inclusive would be probably the most affordable and fun way to go. I'm open to ideas. So let me just say that. So let me know kind of what you're thinking, and we'll go from there. And also, before we also get going, book club. I sent out an email to people that had shown interest in being in the book club. I sent that out today. I've had ongoing website and hosting issues. So I guess Missouri Cowboy, did you get an email from me today? Because nobody responded back to it, but I also didn't ask anybody to respond. Well, maybe I did. I asked them to give me their thoughts on something, but nobody got back to me, which is making me wonder if any like people didn't get it or whatever. Oh, you did get it. Okay, awesome. Camping Fool 59 says Cancun, way out of my league. So I'm also totally down for doing smaller scale meetings too. Let me just say that. So I'm in Michigan, totally down with doing. It would probably be easiest for me. I was thinking, because people were saying that they wanted to fly in. That's why I was thinking Cancun or Las Vegas. It would for sure be easier and cheaper for me if we just did something within like, a 5 or 6 hour radius of Michigan. But like I said, I'm open. Let's see. And we could potentially do Zoom to do like a conference call conference kind of thing, I guess. Lots of options. Okay. So I think that's it. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Joanna says, how do I deal with my ex who dumped me in April and didn't talk to me except when her new boyfriend isn't around? Then she comes by and says hi and gives me money or stuff for our dogs. For the dogs I have now. Why? What's her motive? My guess would be that her motive is to just keep that door open. Every piece of communication with a narcissistic person is generally it's a manipulation. So, and that takes a while for us to really wrap our minds around, but there is no good deed without strings attached. So if she's coming around and she's being super nice and giving you money and all that, it's generally because she's going to want to keep that door of communication open in the future. So if she wants to come back and she needs a place to stay, or she wants, sex or money down the road, or attention or what have you, that she's going to feel like she can come back and bother you. So if you can go no contact, that's really the way to go. Try it and go. It can help to kind of go gray rock when you go no contact like that, and just make it seem like no big deal. It's you, it's not her. You're just driving on kind of next. You just need to kind of close that chapter in that book and have a clean start, and just keep it. Don't try to get into depth about her behavior and your relationship and narcissism. And don't even open that, because that'll just suck you back into arguing or more drama and chaos. Just be very firm and just, hey, I think it's best if we just go our separate ways. And, I don't, but like, that's the thing with going gray rock. Like, don't let her know that it's hard on you for her to keep coming back, or that she's manipulative or any of that. Don't even go there. Just, I think we just kind of need to go our separate ways. It's time for me to move on. And if she then block her number, don't answer the door if she comes by, those kinds of things. Just stay really busy. If she catches you in the driveway or something, make up an excuse. I've really got to run. Just make yourself very unavailable. So let's see. Hey, George is here. Hey, George. Let me scroll down here. Oh, Stacy said that she showed one of my videos to her narcissist, and he got all defensive and said, I need to stop listening to this BS. So very common. So when an abusive person is confronted with their abusive behavior, even if it's in like, hey, here's a video that kind of loosely describes you, they don't see it. That's part of narcissism, is that they don't have the problem. Like there's like these major blind spots in their personality, because they feel justified and entitled to treat other people the way that they do. So to them, it's not a problem. And the more you start talking about abuse, and especially any problem with their behavior, the more they're going to tell you that you're crazy, that you're the problem, that you're being abusive, that you're controlling, that you're manipulative, and so on. But it's not. You're like, they don't want to acknowledge that there's anything wrong with what they're doing. That's a great question and topic. Missouri Cowboy says, hey, Dana, can you speak on pathological giving and pathological hope in regard to being vulnerable to a narcissist? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, but let me kind of give you my take on it, and then we can go from there. I think a lot of us that are vulnerable to narcissists, or that have had quite a few of them in our life, we tend to be pathological givers and have that pathological hope, or that pathological or malignant optimism about the situation. And a lot of it is because we really want things to work out. And so, because it's not, if we have this mindset of commitment at all cost, then giving up on things is not even on the radar. So we tend to hang in till the bitter end. Well, because we're hanging into the bitter end, we're trying to do everything we can to make this relationship work. So we often think, if I just become a better partner or friend, or if I twist myself into an emotional pretzel, then I can make them happy, and then I can finally have this relationship that I need. And not realizing that that's incredibly dysfunctional, because odds are, for a lot of us, it's how we've always been. And I mean, I know for me, it took me, I mean, I'll be 40 at the end of this month. It took me almost 40 years to realize that that was a problem. I always thought, well, there's great value in always being solutions oriented and always trying to, to make things work, and to being very accommodating and gracious and understanding and compassionate. I didn't realize that it was a problem until, it's a problem if you're doing these things, if you're sinking yourself in order to try to save them or try to save the relationship. Like, that's not healthy at all. And it takes an awful long time to realize that it is possible to give too much, and to that it's a problem, that to hold on to hope and to think that this person can continue, that someday possibly that they can change, when they've given no signs whatsoever that they have any interest in changing. But I think for so many of us, we just don't realize that there's people out there that have such disruptive, chaotic, abusive personalities, and that they have no interest in changing. Because for us, if we're very, kind of wired to make a relationship work, it's very foreign to us. Like, well, why would somebody want chaos and drama and dysfunction in their life? Why wouldn't they just want to kind of live happily ever after? And frankly, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter why they do what they do. All that really matters is that we understand that it's toxic and that we have to stay away from it. So, and kind of on that note, a lot of people, myself included, when they first come across narcissism, they're very focused on trying to understand the narcissist. I totally get it. I was there too. However, it's less about, it really does us very little good to fully have another person figured out. Like, but let me preface that by saying, I get it, because it's important that we understand manipulative behavior and understanding what about what they were doing was abusive or manipulative. Like, that is important. But it's also as important that we understand ourselves and understand what vulnerabilities did they exploit, and do we have a pattern of these kinds of people in our life? And where is that coming from? And addressing those vulnerabilities, because until we do that, until we realize, all narcissists target supply, and, people that they identify as supply, and they exploit vulnerabilities to get what they want. Until we realize, like, what is it about us that they've been able to exploit, especially if there's been a pattern of these kinds of people in our life, then it's going to continue to happen. So really, really important. I did a video series a while back, or at least I started a video series a while back, on red flags of codependency. And even if you're not identifying as codependent, I know that word is very emotionally charged. That series is all about a lot of aha moments that I had, that I think a lot of people tend to have, and with boundaries and kind of a lot of well-intended bad advice that I fell into. And I think that video series will help. So if that's something that you're struggling with holding on to hope, hoping this person will eventually change, even though their behavior shows that, if anything, they've just gotten either better at hiding their bad behavior or they've gotten worse, then it's important. Like, I highly recommend going and watching that. Going and watching that series. I think it'll really help. So November Soul Search. Thank you so much for the donation on the super chat. Tanitria is here. Hello. And Elise and Suzanne and Michelle and lots of people. Let's see. Suzanne says, I believe we keep doing the research because it reinforces this idea that there are people like this, and this is really happening. We are clearing the cognitive dissonance. I totally get it, and I agree completely. I do think that's a very valid, important stage in healing, is because for people that are inherently good and we take other people at face value, this is like the most crazy thing that we've ever experienced. We just don't realize that there's people out there that walk the earth that can be like this. And even if we did realize that there's people out there that can do this much damage, we tend to think that we'd be able to spot them. So I think it's very important to understand like what manipulative behavior is, what abusive behavior is, how it goes down, and all of the different varieties of it, from like, mild to moderate to severe. So a lot of this stuff on this channel that I talk about, this is more like on like the severe end or moderate to severe end of like manipulative or abusive behavior. And this is another reason too, I encourage people to focus on how they feel about a situation with that kind of that gut feeling that something's not right. Because another thing that we tend to do, myself included, is especially after these kinds of relationships, is we think it's like that need for proof. So if this abusive relationship has become our new normal or I should say our baseline for what problematic behavior is, that can be a terrible gauge to measure other relationships by. So, and a lot of people will do that. They're like, well, this person's, yells and screams, but at least they don't hit like the other person, or they might yell and scream, but they don't call names, or they yell and scream, or maybe they cheat every now and again, but they don't yell and scream. So it's all still within the range of highly problematic, but if we're using this extreme relationship as our baseline, then that's a really bad baseline to operate from. It's a much better way to go about kind of navigating the waters of all of this if we can focus on what's healthy and let that be the baseline for which we decide and discern what we want in our life, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see here. Tom, thank you for the live stream donation. That's awesome. It's like I don't see him, and then all of a sudden there's this bright little banner. It's fun. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see. Oh, Cecilia, how cool. It says, I saw him in passing in traffic and it didn't drum up any feelings whatsoever. Does a little dance. Yay for you. Isn't that an awesome feeling to just be like, I don't hate you. I don't like you. I just don't care. Like, you're so in my past. That's huge. Tom asks, how do we keep from feeling so stupid for allowing them to do these things to us? That's such a great question, and something so many people struggle with. Let me scoot my chair up a little bit more so the volume is better. I think realizing that their behavior is a reflection of them and it's not a reflection of you. And that why we continue to allow them to do these things has a lot to do with the vulnerabilities. there's a lot of different reasons why people continue to stay in these relationships, but a big one is this manipulative person is continuing to exploit emotions and exploit vulnerabilities, which keeps a person stuck. That's one of the many reasons people stay, because for financial reasons. They stay because they have no place to go. They stay because they have pets. They stay because they feel trapped. They stay because their money is being monitored. Um, but if you've ever heard any, in that video series that I was talking about earlier, that red flags of codependency, there's a few videos on there having to do with empty buckets and kind of how and why we tend to get roped into these relationships, and some thoughts on like why we tend to stay. So outside of very real and very practical reasons like money, children, fear, those kinds of things, why people tend to stay. November says, yeah, one major thing I've noticed is that they criticize you for not being independent enough. And then when you find independence, they try to halt the progress. Yes. Yes, that's so true. It's always trying to hit a moving target. They want, like you were saying, they want you to be independent. Okay, now you're independent. Now they don't like that. They want you to dress sexy. You dress sexy, then they accuse you of cheating. They want you to go back to college or to start a different job. You do that, and then they tell you, oh, you'll never make it. You're too stupid. You're too old. That's the wrong career. There's always that like criticizing or undermining or accusations or just all kinds of things. It's not you, it's them. It's not you, it's them. And there's not enough eggshells in the world that we can walk on, or you can't twist yourself up into an emotional pretzel enough in order to get them to be okay with you and to be loving and supportive. Like it's not who they are. So Judith, thank you so much for the live stream donation. That's awesome. Thank you. Missouri Cowboy says, I was not stupid. I was ignorant. Yes. Thank you. That's a very important distinction to make. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment that goes on when a person realizes that they're in an abusive relationship, and especially when they get out of it and they're trying to heal from it and they realize that they've been in an abusive relationship. It's this feeling of, how did I not know? And why did I stay for so long? And then of course, a lot of other people are like asking the same thing. How did you not know? How did you stay for so long? Why did you stay for so long? And I think it's very important to realize the dynamics of an abusive relationship are very similar to that of either a cult, generally like a cult. So nobody joins a cult thinking that they've joined a cult. And they're willing participants in this, but they've been very manipulated and brainwashed. And then when they start to realize this is like really problematic and they go to leave, there's this feeling of, oh my gosh, how did it get to this point? How did I let this man marry my 10-year-old daughter? How did I shave off all of my hair and donate all of my life savings to this person, this cult leader, male or female? How did I get here? And oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? And what have I done? There's just that tremendous amount of, when that cognitive dissonance clears, there's that tremendous amount of like guilt and remorse and shame and regret. And that's a really hard thing to recover from. And an abusive relationship is very much the same way. People don't get into an abusive or stay in an abusive relationship, oftentimes realizing that it's abusive. And it's not stupidity. And these people are very manipulative, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. Nothing. I mean, anybody can get tangled up with an emotional manipulator because they're really good at being manipulative. So Donna, thank you for the donation. That's awesome. And what we were talking about earlier with understanding how abusive and manipulative behavior goes down, I think that is so important because it's important to be aware of it so we can spot it again. I've shared about, my life when I got in that first relationship and then I got out of it. I felt like it was a hit and run car accident. Like this just happened to me. It was a fluke thing. I got tangled up with a sociopath, kind of statistically speaking. They're like 3% of the population. It'll probably never happen again. And so it wasn't on my radar to even watch for that. I went back to the kind of the old me, like taking people for face value. Yes, I had trouble trusting. I had a lot of like PTSD stuff going on, but I still took people at face value. I didn't learn all of the lessons from that I needed to learn. And it wasn't until I was in a very similar relationship a few years later that it was the realization of, okay, now there's a pattern. So am I cursed? Like, what am I missing? How does this keep happening to me? And that was when I really began to dig and realize, okay, there's a lot more here that I didn't see before. Like, this isn't a fluke. And that was when I realized, okay, I have these empty buckets. I had these vulnerabilities that were continuing to be exploited. And, I had to work on that. So, yeah, when you can figure that out, it's a game changer. It really, really is. So Michelle, thank you so much for the donation. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Let's see. Yeah, George, great point. It's talking about it's on this kind of like basically narcissism is on a spectrum. A narcissist can be in complete denial. A pure sociopath can be fully aware of their behavior. They just have no empathy. Yeah. Yep. That's pretty much it. Yeah, let's see. Where did that go? Kendra had said they are demonic. I think a lot of that behavior, I think it's evil. I think it is flat out evil. When there's that malicious intent to destroy another human being and there's no empathy and there's no remorse, yes, I think that is what evil is. And even though I'm not a religious person, I think it's important that we see it as like, this is evil. These people, this kind of stuff is pure evil. And to not make excuses for it, to not be like, oh, well, they had trauma in their childhood. Well, you know what? Get in line, like we all did. So it's not okay that they can't have a free pass. Like, it's important that we call evil for what evil is and not whitewash it. So, okay, let's see here. Truth Seeker says, yeah, saccharine sweet words said over and over again until you believe them. That's the trap. Yes. So a lot of people think that Oh, a narcissist will never apologize. A narcissist will never own up to their behavior. A narcissist will, you know, like never be accountable. It's important to realize that there's degrees of, like George was saying, there's degrees of awareness of this kind of stuff. And so a lot of them, especially more on like the sociopathic end of things, oh, they'll tell you anything you want to hear. I'm so sorry. I really messed up. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I see what I've done wrong now. I really want to make things work. I'm going to get into therapy. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to go to rehab. You know, whatever you need to hear, they will say. And they just start throwing everything that they think is going to make a difference out in order to get you to give them another chance. But it's just sucking you back in. They tend to not change. They tend to just get worse, and they get better at hiding what they're up to. So, let's see. There was a question. Somebody had emailed me. Here, where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay, it's from Cheryl, who says, hi, Dana. Thank you for the work that you do to educate victims of abuse. Here's my question. How is it that the narcissist can seamlessly move from one relationship to another without even coming up for air? My ex cheated many times over. The last woman was a prior ex-fiance who he ended our 25-year marriage for. I can't even wrap my head around marrying anyone ever again, and for him, it's nothing. Well, it's so hard. You know, narcissists, they don't attach at a deep level. So for them, it's like a child. Like words mean nothing. There is no thought to down the road. It's only whatever they want in the moment. It's like if a child really wants a puppy, they'll promise you the sun and the moon and the stars. They're going to walk that dog every day. They're going to feed it. You won't have to do a thing. They're going to take care of it. They beg and plead and cry and say whatever you need to hear in order for you to break down and give them that puppy. But then once they get that puppy, guess what, right? Like you're the one walking it. You're the one feeding it. You're the one taking care of it while your kids are off doing their thing. So narcissists are the same way. Like they say whatever they need to say in order to get whatever they want to get. And because their words are only really just tools of manipulation in order to get people to break down, there's no depth there. So when they say, oh, I really love you, I'll do anything to make this work, it's the same thing as like me saying, oh, I really love spaghetti. I just really enjoy it so much. I would do anything to just have spaghetti for dinner. It's obviously it's not the same thing, right? Like I love spaghetti is not the same as like I love my brother, or like the depth of emotion shouldn't all be the same. But for them, it's the same. So when they're saying, I love you, it's the same thing as like, I love spaghetti. Like it's that same level of emotional connection and depth. That's why they move on so quick, because the bonds aren't very deep. And, you know, for those people who have had a relation of any length of time, have had a relationship with a narcissist who has, you know, come on really strong and certain and like, you know, you're the one I want and I want a relationship with you. And they promise, you know, it's all of that future faking of, you know, I want a relationship with you and this is, everything's going to be so perfect. And then they just disappear. You know, it can be so devastating. It can be so hard for us to wrap our mind around how on earth did they go from I was their soulmate to now I'm just nothing. And I think it's very similar to it's actors on a stage, or maybe a better analogy is it's like con artists, like people, the emotional manipulators that are on like dating sites, for example, that target people, you know, and they're like, oh, They're very, very quick to be, I'll be anything that you need me to be. I really want to take care of you. I love children. I have no problem. Whatever you are, I fully accept, and I want a relationship with you. And then the next thing you know, they're hitting you up for money. Like, those scam artists don't attach to their victims at all, right? Like, they're just saying everything that they need to say in order to get their victims money. And narcissists are very much the same way, although it might not be money that they're after. It might be social status or public image, or a place to stay, money, sex, kind of you name it. But yeah, to those of us that have sincere emotions and that got tangled up in that, it's absolutely devastating because we believed them. Dora says, yeah, my girlfriends always call him a con artist. Yep. And reframing it that way to make it very clear on yourself can really help. So it helped, like for me in my experience, it helped me to understand this person was an emotional con artist, just like any other online dating scammer. Like, that's what I got. I got tangled up in a con, like nothing more, nothing less. It was never a relationship. It was a manipulationship. And I had to get very clear about that, because once you get clear about it and you realize this person targeted you and was trying to exploit you for something, sex, money, public image, social status, what have you, that none of their words were sincere, it's absolutely devastating, but it can make it a lot easier to just walk away. And it can make it a lot easier to cut those bonds and realize, you know, it's going to take a little while for those feelings to fade, but realize those feelings, you fell in love with the fantasy. We fell in love with who they pretended to be. And frankly, anybody would love that person. So, you know, it's not you. Like, it's not just you. It's they do a good job of pretending to be everything that we are looking for in a partner, and then all hell breaks loose. Yeah, Missouri Cowboy says they simply use sex as a hook. The sex of the target, or the sex or gender, what have you, of the target doesn't matter to them. And that's very true. A lot of them are, you know, gender doesn't matter. Like, they can go from male to female to male. I have a lot of people. It's so interesting when I get emails from people that are like, you know, my husband of 25 years left me for another man. Or I found out that he had been cheating on me with, like my situation with the first guy, he'd been cheating on me with men, women, couples, like you name it. And that was quite the shock. A lot of people tend to go through that, or they'll be like, I was in a lesbian relationship and she left me for a man. Or, you know, I was with a guy, you know, a gay relationship and he left me for a woman. And there's all this confusion of, I thought this person was straight, or I thought this person was gay. And now all of a sudden they're living this like radically different life. But that's the narcissist. They'll put on these different masks. And it's not just with sex or sexuality. It can be with religion or interests, or, I mean, the way they dress, you name it. So they can go, if they're with you, and let's say, like for me in my situation, you know, pretty into like Buddhism and spirituality, and I'm a vegetarian, I don't watch a lot of TV, like kind of embracing my lifestyle. And then the next person being like radically different. That was one of the strangest things. I did not know what to make of that for the longest time. That was just so bizarre. So they're con artists. They're social chameleons. They change into being whatever they need to be in order to get whatever they want to get. George, asks, hey, Dana, do you have any advice for those attempting to discard their narcissist after you caught them cheating or getting super hoovered with promises of change? I think the biggest thing is seeing it for what it is as clearly as you possibly can. Once you see that it's nothing more than a manipulation, it's a lot easier to walk away. I'm also, you've heard me talk about this probably every single video for the past 2.5 years, but for the new people, one of the most important things that you can do in order to stop getting sucked back in is what I call for when you miss him or her list. And so on this list, it's just write out a series of bullet points of everything, every weird, every lie, every squirrely, awful, rotten thing they've done, and a bullet point list. And so when you do find yourself tempted to respond, tempted to get sucked back into that Hoover, you take out that list and you read it. And anything on there, like they lied to you about having a dog. They lied to you about never being married before. They cheated on you with people that they met off the internet while you were recovering from cancer. They opened up credit cards in your name that you didn't know about. Like you're writing down every single thing. They like verbally berated you on your birthday in front of all of your friends. They lied to you about their age. They lied to you about how much debt they were in. You caught them talking to their ex multiple times. You want to make this list incredibly painful because it'll help snap you out of that cognitive dissonance when it starts setting in. So that would be my advice. Write down that list of for when you miss him or her and go back and continue to read it. And then watch a lot of videos on manipulative behavior and, narcissists and cheating. And I think too, realizing that there are people out there in the world that are not like us, that are not like you, and that it's important to have deal breaker behavior. Not everything is fixable. If a person continues to lie, cheat, steal, exploit, manipulate, use, abuse, what have you, that's their personality and they're not going to change. And therapy doesn't help. So now it's up to you to be like, okay, now what am I going to do? Instead of like holding on to hope that they might possibly change is a great way to just like cause yourself a lot of unnecessary hurt and heartache. These people, they don't change. They tend to get worse over time, not better. Without trust and without a mutual sense of trust and support, there is no relationship there. There's no friendship there. There's no relationship there. That's another thing people often ask, and I get it. People often ask, Dana, can I be friends with my narcissistic ex? I get that asked. People ask that a lot. And, at the end of the day, if there's kind of the definition of friendship is a sense of mutual trust and support. That's the definition of friendship. It's not a person who's nice, a person who's enjoyable to be around. It's a mutual sense of trust and support. If that's not there, then there is no friendship. And to try to be friends with somebody who has been shown that to be like actively working against you, they've been using, abusing, exploiting you, that's not a friend. That's not even in the zip code of friendship. So Lynette said, how can they switch? They can just all of a sudden become so verbally abusive. Until I said no more. How can I do, now I can do no wrong. What the heck? Please help me understand. Okay, so what you're most likely experiencing, it's that cycle of abuse. So it goes idealize, devalue, discard. some people ride only part of that cycle over and over again. That idealize, devalue, idealize, devalue. In the more like traditional or well-known cycle of abuse, there's that honeymoon period, which is what you're experiencing, and then the tension, what they call tension building. But I frankly, I don't like the way that's named, because it's not tension building. Tension building implies that there's the actual things going on in the relationship that's making them be abusive, but it's not. It's abuse is all about power and control. It's coming from within them. It's nothing to do with anything that we're doing. But there's that, in that cycle, there's the honeymoon period, and then there's this like tension building phase, and then there's the explosion, and then there's the honeymoon period, tension building, explosion. So if you've called them out on that abusive behavior, now they're on their best behavior, you know, they'll probably be on their best behavior until they realize that you've kind of settled the routine. You know, people be on their best behavior for a little while until they realize things have gotten comfortable again. And then that abusive behavior surfaces. So, you know, you can continue to keep calling him out on stuff every time he yells or screams or name calls or threatens or what have you. And the thing with that though, here's the thing with boundaries, is yelling at a person or even telling them, don't talk to me like that. That's only part of a boundary. The second part of a boundary, so the first part of a boundary is being assertive. That's not okay. You know, it's basically learning to say no. It's learning to draw that line in the sand. I'm not okay with being talked to that way. Okay, that's the first part of it. Second part of it is having some sort of actionable consequence to that behavior. What a lot of people tend to get caught up in is you have this abusive person that acts abusively, and then they're like, well, they yell back, or they become physically violent back, or they try to somehow settle the score. Well, he or she cheated on me, I'm going to cheat on them. They're doing everything they can in order to kind of try to settle the score, except they don't leave. And so it's important to have deal breaker behavior to realize, how many times am I going to continue to call them out on their behavior and to continue to be treated like this, and to continue going from things going really good to things going really bad before I actually leave. So that's something that, you know, only you can get clear on with yourself. But it's helpful to see it what it is. Lou, yeah, totally. I hear you. I totally agree with that. He says, once I upgraded my personal definition of a friend, I suddenly realized that most of my current friends don't meet the mark. Yep. That's so huge. So many of us that go through this start realizing, you know, it was this one relationship that brought this problematic behavior to my attention. Like, I didn't know what abuse was. I didn't know what emotional abuse was, or verbal abuse really was, until, or physical abuse or what have you. I didn't realize that I didn't know what it was until this one relationship. And then now that I know what it is and I see how problematic it is, I'm starting to kind of look around, and I'm like, you know, I've had quite a few people in my life that have had some really problematic behavior, but it was never this extreme. So I always kind of let it slide. But once you start waking up to it and you're like, yeah, you know, constant criticism, devaluing, yelling, screaming, name calling, cheating, lying, manipulating, you know, all of these things, little subtle jabs, you know, criticism, complaining, all of this stuff, you start to see it as the toxic behavior that it is. And it's very eye-opening. So for sure, it's worth kind of re-examining, you know, who all do we have in our inner circle? And is there a sense of mutual trust and support? Because a lot of us tend to have very one-sided relationships and one-sided friendships, where we're the one that's there to listen and give support and time and energy and money, while this other person is only calls us if they're in crisis, and if they need somebody to listen, or if they need somebody to help them move, or what have you. And that's not a friendship. Like, that's an unequal balance there. It's So it's worth it reevaluating, how many of your relationships and friendships are on level ground and that are healthy. Cecilia says, I'm afraid of falling into one-sided relationships still. Yeah. Well, and I think it's an ongoing process with all of this. Like, it's a learning curve. And I think too, once you start riding that learning curve of healthy boundaries and healthy relationships and re-examining all of this and re-examining our behavior with like deal breakers and kind of who we really are and what we want, and realizing that change it's a very difficult thing. It's an ongoing thing. It's day in and day out, examining our boundaries, examining how we feel. Are we feeling resentful? Are we feeling irritated? Are we feeling anxious or depressed or, like angry? Those are all signs that a boundary has been violated. And so to pay attention to that and realize, okay, well, what needs to happen in order to get that boundary back in place? It's an ongoing process. And when you realize that something's out of whack, or that you found yourself in yet another one-sided friendship, to then realize, okay, here I am again. I need to get out of it. And it takes practice. It takes practice. That's why going slow can be so helpful with making friends, especially with dating, but with making friends and realizing that you have the power to leave. You have the power to leave. Whatever situation you're in, whether it's a job or relationship or a friendship, and it's toxic, you can leave. So I think knowing that it takes practice, knowing that realistically, because it does take practice, you probably will find yourself in some one-sided relationships or friendships again, until you can fully figure out what's going on here. How does this behavior kind of tend to play out in my life? What is it within me that tends to kind of fall for that? So like, for example, with me, I tend to really fall for like sympathy or pity. If somebody's like, oh, I really need you. Or if they're in a bad place, like I want to jump in and help. And, in my personal life, like with friends or whatever, I've had because it's a knee-jerk reaction to like over volunteer myself to help in ways that it's not healthy. And so trying to get that more in balance, but bringing that to my awareness was a huge step in the right direction. So it's sort of like with you, like you'll have to figure out, okay, what are certain hooks that tend to pull me in every single time, and what can I do differently? And practice it. But I think too, realizing how difficult change is for us makes us realize how difficult change would also be for anybody else, including a narcissist. And for us that are on like the over-giving side of the spectrum, we tend to always experience pain because we're always giving. We tend to live in like frustration, resentment, anger, rage, depression, and anxiety because we're continually having our boundaries violated, and we just sit there and we smile and we nod, and we don't confront other people about it, or we confront them, but we never leave. So we stay in these toxic situations thinking that, well, yelling at them should just be enough to get them to stop, when really, like, no, we need to just walk away. But when you realize we always live in pain. So we always have that motivation to get out of pain. That's a very basic human driver. Whereas narcissists are overtakers. Everything's working out for them all of the time. There's not that high degree of motivation to actually change anything, because they tend to just move from person to person and they exploit and get what they want. And there's no degree of like self-awareness or, empathy or remorse or any of that. So let's see. Yeah, Elise says, actually, I do fewer things for people and they're more thankful because they know I won't give so easily now. And here's the thing too, is when people realize that you're giving to them because you sincerely want to, not because you're trying to keep a friendship going, or you're not because there's some sort of strings attached, right? Or that you're trying to be a people pleaser or get into their good graces. When you're truly giving because you want to give, or you're truly saying yes because you want to actually say yes, and you're truly saying no when you mean no, then they realize that you're operating from a standpoint of like sincerity and authenticity. And that means a lot. Like if a person truly says, yes, I would really like to do this, then they know that you're not just putting them on, like that you really mean, yeah, I would really like to go to your baby shower or out to lunch or what have you, and mean it. Or if you give a gift, it's like, you know what? I thought about you. I thought you'd really enjoy this. I hope you enjoy it. Like no strings attached. You don't have to get me a gift back. There's no hidden agenda. Like I thought about you. I knew you'd like this. I got it for you. Like once you can really get more in alignment with that, it's just so nice. It's just so nice. Like things are so much easier. Henry was saying, yes, I say no a lot more frequently. Yeah. And saying no, it takes practice. It's difficult. It's difficult at first to say no. It really, really is. It's difficult to feel. There's a lot of like inappropriate feelings of guilt. Like, oh, I should say yes, or I should really want to do that. Or we're so used to operating out of like obligation and guilt that saying no makes us feel like a bad person. And I think that's why so many of us tend to say yes when we really mean no. It takes practice asserting ourselves and saying, boy, let's say, for example, you don't want to go to that baby shower or that coworker's birthday party that you don't really know. You might just say like, boy, I'd really like to, but I've got something else going on. That's one way of saying no. Or, you can send a gift instead, or there's so many different ways of kind of navigating around a situation without feeling guilted or obligated to be a part of something. Yeah. And here's the thing too, when you start setting boundaries with people, they will often call you a bitch, or they'll say, or they think that you're being mean. And same with guys, like, oh, this guy's a jerk, he said no, or what have you. But especially when people aren't used to they're not used to you saying no. So for them, if you've got, let's say, for example, if you have an adult child who's now 22, and now you've discovered boundaries, and you're like, oh my goodness, yeah, you know what? This kid has been running the show for 22 years and I've been dragged behind. And now I'm going to start saying no, like, no, you can't have my credit card. No, you can't have my car. No, you need to get a job. Like, you're going to start laying down some rules. They're going to think, oh, you're being so mean. why do you hate me? Because before it was always yes, 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 yes. And so it can be very difficult to all of a sudden start drawing boundaries with somebody that's not used to you saying no, whether it's your child, whether it's your spouse or your significant other or coworkers or what have you. But like I was saying, it takes practice. But once you get to the place where you, and I think a lot of it comes from realizing that like getting out of that obligation and guilt and then just being like, it's not a big deal. Like work, I'm not going to work through lunch. You know, like once you get used to saying no and kind of being assertive, it becomes really easy. And you don't care what other people think because you realize their dysfunction. Like, oh, well, like they can think whatever they want to think, but it's an unreasonable expectation to think that I am going to work through lunch, or that I'm going to stay late and somehow not get paid for it, or that I'm going to postpone my vacation because of whatever. Like, no, these are like, this is what I've got going on, and I am a priority just as much as anybody else. And, you know, but yeah, it takes practice. Let's see. Hey, Lucy's here. Yep. Lucy nailed it. Says, is talking about behavior. My guess would be probably like very ingratiating behavior, and says we probably learn to do this very young or to work around people's behavior and try to accept it. Yeah. So for so many of us, if we've had a kind of a controlling, domineering, narcissistic, abusive, what have you parent, where we've learned at a very early age, you don't have an opinion, your feelings don't matter, you go along with whatever this parent wants. And especially if that parent was kind of in and out of your life or what have you, where a child learns in order to keep a relationship with this parent, I'm going to have to do all of the work, and I'm going to have to be okay with crumbs. And not just be okay with them, be grateful, be so grateful that even though they've made no effort to be in my life for 3 years, 5 years, whatever, 3 months, whatever, that now that they want to be in my life, that I need to jump at that opportunity and work overtime to build that relationship. I think a lot of us have kind of gotten tangled up in these kinds of relationships because that was some of our earliest relationships were really, really unhealthy, but we never realized it because that was all we ever knew. And the book, I believe it's the Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, talks about that. And I remember, I forget who it was, but there was a gal who had the most profound insight. And she had said, talking about like this people pleasing behavior. And she said it was a real eye opener for her when she realized that this ingratiating kind of behavior that she had, she always thought it was her personality. And it was after reading that book that she realized it was more of a defense mechanism. It's like, wow. Yeah, because that's exactly what that is. There's something that's very out of alignment when we're sacrificing ourselves to make everybody else okay. And some of us, I think probably a lot of us, just thought, well, this is just my personality. And we've gone on to build careers around this, becoming like professional caregivers, nurses, teachers, social workers, working in the nonprofit sector, just really going above and beyond. Because it's like that was the one thing that we knew how to do really well, was to care about other people, and not realizing that there was anything problematic about that. It's very eye-opening when you realize that certain traits can be taken to a really unhealthy extreme. So Truth Seeker says, yes, totally. With the, we should worship them for crumbs. Yeah. Yes. Elise says, many people are out of alignment with their feelings in one extreme or the other. Oh, I agree. I think that the vast majority are. And it takes, I think that's kind of, and I don't mean this to be like minimizing or trivializing, but I think in a way that's kind of the gift in going through something like this. The gift in having your life blown apart is the realization of, oh my goodness, like there were so many things in our lives that were out of alignment that we never realized. And it took this level of pain to realize this. And frankly, I don't think people have kind of a wake up call any other way than, unfortunately, than going through a hell like narcissistic abuse. It's just, it can lead to a very intense level of personal growth that I just don't think is possible any other way. Missouri Cowboy says, it's way cheaper and way better than my shrink. Dana's live stream is an excellent value. Thank you for the donation so much. That's really, thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think really it's the magic is in hearing from so many other people, not just me. It's all of it. When you start, and the cool thing, this is, I just love it. And I think Lucy loves this too, which is why we love the book club. But when you start getting other people together and you start hearing other people's aha moments and insights and hearing little pieces of their story, it's so eye-opening. Even if you think, oh man, I've got so much stuff figured out, there can't possibly be much more. And then you'll encounter another person and they just blow your hat off, because it's like, oh my goodness, they're making connections you hadn't even thought of. I mean, it's just so cool, the synergy of a group. And I love it. I just love it. It's so powerful. Yep. Tammy says, and the worst was being emotionally or physically abused by patients as a medical professional in management, doing absolutely nothing because they bring in the money and we must keep them happy. Yes. Yeah. When I went through nursing school, I expected nursing school to be full of a lot of really caring, compassionate, wonderful nurses. And I was really surprised by how many just absolutely awful, hateful, bitter, evil nurses that were teaching in the program, and that are nurses in general. Like, that was just shocking to me. And granted, there were some that were absolutely fantastic and caring and loving and like everything that I wanted to be as a nurse and that I thought nurses were. And I remember getting out of nursing school, and there's a lot of hazing that goes on. There's a lot of instructors that can just make your life a living hell, probably for a wide variety of reasons. But nursing school can be really, really difficult on many levels. And I'd promised myself when I got out of there that I would never let myself be treated like that again, because they had absolute power. Because it was the attitude of, well, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to try to go apply somewhere else? You're going to be on a wait list for the next 3 to 5 years. And they knew that you were stuck, and they knew that they had you until you graduated. It was awful, awful. Never again will I be treated like that. So Bob says a lot of doctors are narcissists as well. They think they are gods. Yeah, some are. Like, narcissists and egomaniacs are in every profession, every single profession out there. And, a lot of doctors are, but you know what though? At the same time, I've met a lot of doctors that are just awesome, like phenomenal, and that are down to earth and care so much about their patients. And, I've met, there's just, I don't know, there's just narcissists in every profession. And I think there's good, caring people in every profession too. It's just, I think it's knowing the behavior, like what problematic behavior looks like, so you can steer clear of it whenever it does surface, whether it's a doctor or a therapist or the garbage man or your landlord or a roommate or whoever, that you see it for what it is and you just steer clear of it. Let's see. Maria says, it's so interesting. I've read there's a high number of codependents as nurses. Very interesting. Oh, I'm sure. I think if you ask most nurses, especially the ones that are very caring and compassionate, they'll tell you, and I would have told you the same a handful of years ago, that it felt like a calling. Like it didn't feel like a profession, it felt like a calling, that we were here to help. And so many of us had been caregivers our whole lives. I mean, I started caregiving. My grandmother lived with us when I was 15 and on, and she had dementia. And so I grew up, that was a big part of my teenage years, was taking care of a woman with dementia. And that really teaches you to be like, you're on the back burner when you've got a person that has dementia in your home. Like it's about them and their needs, and you can't have friends over, you can't be that loud, you can't have phone calls after a certain time. You're helping with feeding and bathing and toileting, and you just, it's a lot. And so I think a lot of nurses tend to be those very like adult children and learn to help out at a young age. And I think many of them find a sense of kind of self-esteem and self-worth in that, because frankly, I mean, it does feel good. It does feel good to help other people. It does feel good to make a difference. But it's when it's taken to that extreme that we build our life around that, and it's all about other people and it's at the expense of us, then that's when it becomes a problem. But it took me a long time to see that as being an issue in my own life. It's one of those things, it's so hard to see. Oh, what is that Bible verse? It's so hard to see. It's so easy to see the splinter in somebody else's eye, but it's impossible, or it's hard to see the log in our own, kind of a thing. It's just difficult. George says, Dana, your microphone fades in and out. Okay, well, maybe it's me. I think I keep backing up from it, so I'll try to sit closer and we'll see if it makes a difference. Yes. Cecilia says she can relate to being a mature child. They expected her to be born knowing what she was supposed to do. Yeah, I can relate to that too. Elise says her ex was so covert, very rarely called her a name. And if so, it was only to help her improve. That, yes, that kind of covertness, especially if there is like that kernel of truth, where if they're talking to you, they're continuing to like bring up your weight or how much money you make, or some sort of thing where you're like, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I could lose some weight, or yeah, okay, I guess I could make more money, where it seems like that they're being sincere, because they're like, well, I'm just trying to help. I mean, you have so much potential. I hate to see you just working for this small amount, or you'd be so pretty if you just lost some weight, or you'd be such a handsome guy if you just dressed a little better. Like these kinds of things where it can feel like, well, is this sincere, or is this really to help me or is it to grind me down? Because it doesn't feel very helpful. Anika says, yeah, projecting their issues onto you, their insecurities. Yeah. Yep. So true. And Cecilia brought up the term parentification. So this is a very interesting term. So if what I'm talking about, kind of you're like, boy, I'd like to learn more about that, or that really seems to resonate. This term parentification is like very eye-opening. It's basically when a parent turns a child into a parent. So then all of a sudden, like the roles are reversed. So the parent becomes the child and the child becomes the parent. So now the child is the one that's concerned about the parent's emotional or financial or physical well-being. You see this a lot in families where you've got like an alcoholic or an addict, or even like within like an abusive relationship where the child is taking on the role of an adult. And it's very damaging, because then the child is not an adult, and or if the parent is turning the child into a friend at a young age. It's one thing to be friends with your child, when they're grown and they're out of the house, but it's another thing when they're 10 years old and you're telling them all your fears about money and dating and what have you. Like, that's not appropriate, right? Or expecting them to go grocery shopping and to have dinner ready and taking care, being the parent while they're taking care of you. It's not fair. It's not right. That's an interesting question. Lou asks, Dana, do you think that MGTOW and feminism is pushed by narcissistic agendas? That's a great question, and that's a big question. I think that, so for those of you that aren't familiar with MGTOW, it stands for Men Going Their Own Way. And it's a movement where a lot of men are just kind of like checking out to, they're like, you know what? I don't want to get married. I don't want to have that kind of be the end all be all, where kind of my worth as a man is defined by like being married or being a provider or being a father. And I think a lot of what drives that is that a lot of laws are not geared, they're not equal. And so men can, they can, if they bring a lot to a relationship or a marriage, they can lose 50% of their assets, or they tend to be the ones that do lose custody of their children. And even, even good men, we're not even talking about like abusive men, but like good guys can really get the short end of the stick on that, like big time. So I think a lot of the MGTOW movement, it's same with the initial, but I think same with any movement. It comes from frustration of things shouldn't be this way. We want things to change. We want to be heard. And then people start kind of rising up, and then other people start kind of joining that. And then, these movements, unfortunately, kind of tend to take hold and get to a place where then they become like maybe a little bit too extreme. I can see a lot of the MGTOW point of view, and I agree with a lot of it, especially when how it all started. But a lot of it to me is very extreme and can be very misogynistic, and I think that's a problem. Same thing with like extreme feminism is incredibly what's the word I'm looking for? It's not misogynistic. It's it's the opposite of that. No, I can't think of it. It's misandric. That's the word, misandric. So very kind of anti anti-man. It's extreme, the opposite direction. I don't agree with that either. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like equal rights, equal responsibilities. Men have value, women have value. Thank you, misandry. Thank you, Doug. Hey, Doug. But I think it's important that men realize, like, I just think, frankly, I think by and large, marriage is not, it's kind of an outdated concept. And we put a lot on the line. Like in no other situation would people be like, okay, I love you, and I'm going to bet half my stuff on it. Like that, to me, that's just terrible, terrible logic. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of putting everything on the line like that, but I don't know. Yeah, Lou says, he was talking to George about it. He says, yeah, when I checked out MGTOW material, it sounded like there's a lot of spiteful men, and I dated a feminist who blamed me a lot for being a man. Yeah. I think my guess would be that a lot of guys that find their way to MGTOW stuff do so because they've had a really bad relationship with a woman. And a lot but like I said, there's kernels of truth to a lot of that material. I don't know of what they're saying, but it's just, to me, it's taken to an extreme where there's a lot of like anger and misogyny, and I don't think that's the solution either. So let's see. Mala, yeah, had asked, what is parentification? It's when a child is made to become a parent. So when you've got the parent that turns the child into the parent, and then the parent generally becomes the child. So like I was talking about before, you have a lot with addicts and alcoholics. So you've got, let's say, for example, an alcoholic who is drunk, and you've got the child, let's say they're 6 years old. They've learned they need to get their clothes out for school, wake themselves up for school, make their breakfast, make themselves dinner, read themselves a bedtime story, maybe put their parent to bed, make sure that their parent has bread and water in case they wake up in the middle of the night, or they have a bucket in case they get sick. Those kinds of things would be like an example of parentification. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Henry says, I'm just glad I can do whatever I want now. I don't need to be dragged down by some psychotic 2-year-old. Yeah. And that's really what it is. Like when you're dealing with a person who just has this meltdown and becomes this, like you said, psychotic 2-year-old, like an adult body, once you see that, you're like, I'm done. Like, this is not workable. Like this person is so like a million miles away from being emotionally capable of having any form of like balanced relationship with anybody. You can't have you can't have a serious relationship with a psychotic 2-year-old is what it is. Bear asks, hey Dana, how do you feel about polyamory or monogamy? As far as other people, here's my thing with other people. I think it's whatever two consenting adults decide that they want to do. I have no problem with that. Like, go for it. I don't know if that would ever like work for me. I don't think that it would. I've never been in a polyamorous relationship. I've never really had the desire for that, but you know, I think it's just, but it's got to be consensual, whatever two people are doing. Let's see. Yes, thank you, George, for clarifying that. George says, yeah, two key words there: consenting and adults. Consent implies informed, not being lied to. Yeah. Yeah. Not being manipulated, not being like half truths, not being nothing squirrely, like open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented communication. There's got to be trust. There's got to be honesty. There's got to be that support there. If that's not there, then there's nothing there. So, SG, thank you. SG says, thanks for providing a healthy, supportive live stream. You are so very welcome. So thank you for the donation, and thank you for, I'm glad that this can be a healthy, supportive live stream. Let's see. Mala says, hey, Dana, what if consistent gray rocking a family member or a loved one causes us to feel emotionally frozen? Like emotionally frozen just towards them or emotionally frozen in general? I'm going to go with emotionally frozen towards them. And then you correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Uh, yeah, I think realistically, you probably will feel it's not going to feel normal and natural at first, because it's not normal and natural to have to gray rock another person. I think people that have that natural propensity to be like, I really like being open and honest and sincere and solutions oriented and being able to just relax and be myself and feel heard, and have that give and take with another person where they feel that same way too, and it's enjoyable to have to be practice being like emotionally neutral the whole time and on guard the whole time and anticipating your responses so you're not reactive. I mean, that's so much energy to have to continually try to gray rock another person. I think at first it does leave a person feeling emotionally frozen, but it's the realization of there's no relationship possible with the person that you're trying to gray rock. So in a way, it's appropriate to be emotionally frozen, because to be emotionally available would be a mistake. If this person's dangerous, destructive, disempowering, in any other way toxic to you, it's a mistake to be emotionally available. But if you can't get them out of your life, then the only option is to be kind of emotionally frozen. But yeah, it's uncomfortable and it can be exhausting. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So Grace says, Dana, you are my balance podcast to his scary podcast. I'm grateful for both options of healing. So, yeah, for those of you that are just joining us, I had mentioned earlier, I am getting back into the swing of things with the podcast. So you can find my podcast. It's called Thrive After Abuse. Pretty much everything that I do is called Thrive After Abuse. Instagram, YouTube, podcast, Facebook, what have you. Thrive After Abuse. So I'm on Stitcher and iTunes and iHeartRadio and SoundCloud and lots of different places. The goal is to be putting out 3 episodes a week. So I have all the episodes scheduled for July. So yay for that. And then getting into the swing of things. Oh, this is something else that we briefly touched on before, but I wanted to see if you guys are interested in this. I would like to start kind of interviewing people, or maybe that sounds maybe too intimidating, but having a discussion with people that either you guys sharing your story or sharing what's helped you move forward and thrive. So if anybody's up for either one of those, or even like sharing aha moments, you can be anonymous. We can do something where we have the camera off for you. Um, you know, that kind of thing. So let me know if you're interested in that. You can email me, Dear Dana at Thrive After Abuse, if you want to share part of your story and on like a YouTube video or a podcast or what have you. Yeah, the crazy angry codependent says, Dana, me, please. Yeah. Uh, you're welcome. Welcome to email me. I'd love to chat with you about that. I think it would be really helpful to discuss that and to hear other people's input kind of in that discussion. Heather says, Dana, my ex took me to court for false allegations. I won, but it cost me $2,500. Now he is trying to threaten to take me back to court and he's gaslighting me again. Any help? I would find out if you can countersue for court expenses for fraudulent charges. So, and I would contact an attorney. Yeah, because a lot of times they will do this. Like they'll just drag a person through hell, just trying to get them to spend as much money as possible. So yeah, I would talk to an attorney and see what you can do with that. I'm so sorry. That's got to be exhausting to go through that. Let's see. Oh, and then another thing that I'm trying to do too is editing down these live streams and then making them into much shorter videos. And then the goal for that is for that to come out like probably 3 to 5 days a week. So just shorter clips, because I get it. These live streams are really long. I know it would be way too much for me to sit down and actually watch something that was 2 to 3 hours long. So I do get that. These live streams, I do these in part because I get a lot of emails. This is how these started. I get a lot of emails from people that have questions. I don't have the time to email everybody back. And so I started the live streams as a way for people to be able to just hop on and we can discuss stuff. And then I think too, the added benefit of hearing from other people, not just me. And they've kind of grown as a place for people to kind of get and give support. And so I know that they're long, but there's a lot of benefit for the people that do attend the live streams. And I think there is that sense of community here. That's why. It's not just that I somehow like to hear myself talk for 3 hours, because I don't. Oh, okay. The crazy angry codependent says, Dana, can you please give me the email again? Dear Dana. It's Dear Dana at thriveafterabuse.com. So Dear Dana at thriveafterabuse.com. If you're interested in being interviewed and we'll make a YouTube video or a podcast or both about either your experience or kind of aha moments that you've had, or, just kind of how you've gone on to thrive would be also fantastic. I think a lot of people could really benefit from from hearing those stories of how people have moved forward. Oh, yeah. Fumples says, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that. Fumple says there's a guy who has made so far 3 videos about unmasking an Australian leader in the YouTube vegan community named Durian Ryder, who's been accused of exploiting young women into having sex and raping them. He says some of your video clips are edited into the videos. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. I'm familiar with Durian Ryder and Freely, and I had actually tried reaching out to her several times over the past couple years, encouraging her to, like, look into, like, research gaslighting, research narcissism, like research silent treatment, research verbal and emotional abuse, because to me it was very clear on their videos. I'm like, this guy is red flag city. And then more and more stuff began coming out about, these allegations from other women and all of it. And so I think he's an abusive jerk for sure. Completely narcissistic. So that's interesting. Do you know the guys, the guy who's making the YouTube videos? I'll have to look that up. Okay. Norwegian. Very cool. I'll have to check it out. Really? Norwegian is a jail guard. That's interesting. I would not have guessed that at all. Yeah, then he really would know all about NPD and antisocial personality disorder. It's so wild once you see it, because like this kind of behavior, like narcissistic or sociopathic, problematic behavior in general, once you see it, you really start seeing it. Like your eyes are open to it. And it's so wild because everybody else is gonna be like, oh, that's so romantic, or oh, then they give excuses or what have you, and you're awake to it. And it's like, actually, nope, that's like this is verbal abuse, or this is emotional abuse, and this is a problem. Okay, Fumples says you can type in YouTube The Unmasking Part 1. I'll check it out. I will check it out. Yeah, Dora says, oh, it's so true, Dana. I am so awake to it all. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, I've left a few comments on some different videos out there. It's so funny how small the internet is sometimes, especially on YouTube. Like I've come across a handful of different people like that have left that I, have chatted with a lot on like the live streams, and I see their comments on other videos, or they've said, hey, I saw that you commented on this one video. I'm like, God, that's so weird. Like, what a small world. It's kind of fun. Fun to run into people in unexpected places, especially people that you like. Not so fun when it's not people that you don't want to run into. Let's see. Lisa says, yeah, the narcissist in my life is overspending since the discard. $41,000 so far, maxed out 2 credit cards and has nothing to show for it other than impressing his new supply. Yep. That's sounds about right. And um yeah, not a shocker. It's really wild to see just their lack of their like not forward thinking and the level of destruction that they can do in their own life. Elise says the vows were so romantic. You're mine, mine, even your little flaws, like yelling at me when you're mad. Yeah, the vow, all of the talk can be so convincing and so romantic. Mala says, Dana, how did you cope when you found out about the other narcissists in your life? I think you remember saying something about your grandfather that was a minister and a narcissist. It felt like, this is going to sound really weird. It felt like it was this family, almost like curse kind of thing, like that a lot of the women in my family had been battling this for generations. And I just, like, I didn't, okay, I know that sounds like dramatic, but like, I guess I didn't realize how prevalent narcissistic abuse was at the time. So, like, after my first relationship, which actually really wasn't even my first narcissistic relationship, it was just the one that was the most extreme that brought all of this to my attention. It was around that time that my mom had given me a book that my grandmother had written about her experience and her divorce with my grandfather, who was a narcissist. But of course, she didn't use that term because that term wasn't used in that context at that time. And, reading her story, it just felt like this is just something that's been going on in our family for a very, very long time. And then once I began getting into talking to other people about this and, um, different support groups and reading and all of this, then it began to make a lot more sense. And then I began to realize it's actually very few people, I think, who only tend to have like one narcissist in their life. Like they tend to have multiple ones and they probably don't realize it. Either it's not been that severe or, well, generally it's just not been, it's been problematic, but it hasn't been like emotionally devastating. So they might have kind of like been limping through with this, narcissistic family member or some like crazy exes or what have you, but or some awful manipulative friendships, but nothing as extreme as that one relationship that blew their world apart that kind of brought them here, if that makes sense. Yeah, Trisha says once you learn what a narcissist is, then you realize all of the narcissists that have been in your life or that are still there. Maria says, can love bombing ever be healthy? Can you meet someone and feel great fire and feel great passion? Am I wrong for wanting that? Is that unhealthy? Um, maybe a different word other than love bombing. So love bombing is when a person bombs another person with love. And when I say the word love, I mean attention and affection. anybody that's really, I was going to say that's an adult, but frankly, anybody at any age that comes out of the gate running and they're full steam ahead and right away, oh, I've never met anybody like you. I want to spend all my time with you. They're texting you, they're calling you for hours every single day. They're, it's relentless. It's getting bombed by this attention and affection, and you can do nothing wrong. And things tend to pick up. So most relationships, when they start up, there is that level of intensity. It's not to the degree of love bombing. So yeah, it's very normal to want to like text and to, you get giddy and you get butterflies in your stomach and you want it to be in contact with that person often. To some degree, that's normal. But when you're talking, things pick up speed so quickly where people are talking about marriage or babies or moving in together, or it's a lot of this false flattery. I've never met anybody like you before. You make me feel so alive. Where have you been my whole life? You're so beautiful. All of that it's not mature behavior and it's not healthy behavior. And it tends to be the behavior of players, of emotional con artists that are either trying to get you into bed or they're trying to get into your wallet. Like that, normal, healthy adults realize what they have to offer. And they realize that they have to be very choosy about who they let into their life because they know how much they have to offer. And they also have been around the block a few times and they realize everybody looks good during that first 90 days. It's like a job interview, right? Like who you're interviewing is not who gets hired. That interview person is their highest and best self. Who shows up like 3 months down the road, it's the person that's coming in late, their clothes are wrinkled, they're turning in their work late. I mean, so anybody can look good for the first few months. And I think healthy, normal, balanced adults realize this. And so it's important to go slow, to make sure that you're seeing the situation clearly and not getting caught up in lust and fantasy. Because when we're caught up in lust and fantasy, we're not thinking clearly, and that can really lead a person into some really bad situations. And if it's real, if that connection's real, it'll still be there. It'll still be there in a month from now or 3 months from now. So just you control the pace. It's so important for all of us to control the pace and to focus on being choosy instead of being chosen. Because that love bombing, and I get it, that love bombing feels amazing. It feels like, I called it, it's like warm maple syrup on the pancakes of your soul. Like it feels that dramatically amazing. And we want to just eat that up because it feels so good, but it's not healthy. That's the bait. It's look at any online dating scammer. That's how they operate. It's right away. I'm honest. I'm loyal. I will do anything for the person that I love. I'm successful. I'm handsome. I'm that perfect partner. And then all of a sudden and they want to talk with you all the time. And they're trying very hard to foster that deep connection because they know that normal people, you're not going to give a total stranger money, but you would give a total stranger money if you felt like they were a fiance, right? Or that you are in this serious relationship with them. And so that's why online dating scammers move like they move. So it's very, very, it's good. If it seems too good to be true, it generally is. And if somebody's laying it on too thick, there's a reason for that. And it's generally because they want something. So I just am very leery. Anybody that's full speed ahead right out of the gate, they've got issues. They've got issues. It's not healthy stuff. The healthier you get too, the less you're going to be attracted to that. because that's the shift. So at first, if we're starved out and we're like, man, I've really been walking around feeling lonely or bored or unloved or unimportant for any length of time, and this person just swoops in and they make us feel so loved and important, and they want to do stuff, and we just kind of get sucked into their life. That's a problem, and we don't want that to go away. But if you can fill all of those vulnerabilities within yourself, then that's going to hold a lot less of an appeal, and it's going to seem like the red flag that it is. Maria says, thanks for clarifying. Love bombing is a creepy Casanova. That's true. It's a sick game. It's not real passion for them. Yes. Yes. Especially, if they're starting to talk being very sexual right away, and there's often boundary pushes. This is why it's so important for us to control the speed of anything that you get into: friendships, business deals, career choices, relations, like any relationship of any degree. Like, you control the pace. This is about having healthy boundaries. And so if something feels off, like, to back it up a little bit, if they feel like kind of laying it on too thick, to kind of back things up a little bit, or to just leave, have that be a deal breaker. If they're within like the first, you haven't even met them yet, and they're talking about, oh, well, I knew when I came across your profile that you were the one for me, or, you're just so amazing, or man, check out that body. Like, I saw that body. I knew I had to email that. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, that level of depersonalization of, man, you're so hot, I had to get to know you, or anything that's sexual or creepy or that feels off is sexual and creepy and feels off. Or just really rude, crass behavior. Red flags, red flags. Hey, Namal. Let's see. Speaking of dentist, is Kevin still around? Kevin, how's your dentist stuff going, if you're still here? That love bombing can really suck a person in, because it can seem so sincere, especially if we're taking somebody at face value. And it can seem so sincere to other people too. Like, oh, this person's writing poetry and they're texting you 20 times and wanting to know where you are and if you'll be home and if you'll talk and if you'll forgive them, because they love you and they want to make things work, and they've never had anything like this before, and they're sending flowers. And it's very easy to confuse that level of intensity for sincerity, and that level of persistence for sincerity as well. But abusive people are often intense and persistent. It's not a positive thing. It's a problematic, obsessive, controlling thing. Lou asks, is there a difference between a male codependent and a quote unquote nice guy? I take a drink here. Yes, I think there is a difference. Just like there's a difference between a female codependent and like a nice gal. So a person can be nice and, open, honest, sincere communication. They can be friendly. They can be likable. They can be amicable. They can have a good give and take. When it becomes problematic for either men or women is when it crosses that line into, it's a one-sided dynamic where you're having to sacrifice yourself to keep the relationship afloat. Or what a lot of men fall into is what's known as like the white knight syndrome. So where they're having to rescue a woman from herself. And there's kind of that female version of that as well, where like kind of the Beauty and the Beast thing, like the beauty's got to rescue the beast from himself. That's problematic and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So it's kind of asking yourself, am I finding myself in a position where I'm having to sink myself in order to save somebody else or in order to save this relationship? If so, then that's a problem. And yeah, a pretty good sign that there's some kind of unresolved, at a minimum, boundary stuff to work on, but more likely some like codependency stuff to work on. Bear says, I'm a recovered white knight. Yep, that's me. Yeah. Allison says, intense and persistent is really obsessive and controlling. Yeah. Yeah. Woo, good for you, Kevin. He says, Dana, 3 appointments down, 3 more to go. I think the hard part is over now. Yay, you. That's awesome. That's huge. Oh no, Tom is saying, is it just me or is the audio messed up? I swear every single week, I don't know why. We even tested it before I went live and it was fine. So I'll look into it again, but I don't know. That's frustrating. And Cecilia was saying she can't get the Teespring site to load. I gave you the wrong address. That's why. Sorry. It's teespring.com/stores/thrive-after-abuse. So that's why. Lou, thank you for the donation. Says, thank you, Dana and George. And thank you. Thanks for that. Let's see. Namal says that he ordered a Teespring mug. Yeah, there's a couple different designs. I've kind of gone bananas over there. It is so much fun, like so much fun to design stuff. So yeah, I'll mention it again. So I designed, if you're just hopping on, I designed a bunch of stuff over on Teespring. So you can order like t-shirts or coffee mugs or what have you. So this is one of them, the mug I've been drinking out of all night long. And I'm going to order another different design for next week, but let's see. So it has like the phoenix on the front, and then this one has on the back, it says good vibes only on the back, as just a reminder to kind of go with your gut and go with like follow what feels good is really what it is. Like follow what feels healthy and empowering and like right for you. And then here's the t-shirt version of the good vibes only. Yay. And it has the Phoenix logo at the bottom, kind of hidden a little bit, like in the curly Q. And then the t-shirt that I am wearing, I'll stand up. So if you can see it, holding it out here, it's the Phoenix on the front, but I changed the wings because I have big boobs and I didn't want it curling around, and because that would be too much. But yeah, I don't know if you can tell, like, so in the video I'm pulling the t-shirt out so like you can see it. There's a couple different designs out there. So Inner Fire says, I want a thermal cup. I will see what I can do. I don't know if they have that option, but I will. If they do, then I will make some because it's super fun. And George says, merch, great designs. George has been bugging me for like 2 years now. Like, do something. I know. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at this stuff. And so this shirt, if you could see it, like this shirt with the gray phoenix has, there's like multiple versions of it. Like there's like a tank top with the full like curve of the wings. And if you go there, you can see it. I did a narcissistic abuse awareness day shirt that has on the front like narcissistic abuse awareness day, June 1st. And then on the back, it has the phoenix. Yeah, you'll see. There's lots of designs up there. So Heather, thank you so much for the donation on the live stream. I appreciate it. Let's see. Cha. Somebody, where did it go? Oh, that's a good idea. Amber says, don't forget we need a key ring too. We do need a key ring. Why did I not make a key ring? That's a great idea. I'm going to do that. Maybe they didn't offer a key ring. I made a hoodie for fall that I plan on wearing. I will look into that. I would like a key ring too. There's so much stuff out there. Technology is so cool. Oh, True Seeker says back to the love bombing thing. Yeah. She says the love bombing persona is so real that it feels like mourning death when they die right in front of you for no reason. Yeah, that's so true. Like, it's hard. It's hard when a person goes from seeming like your soulmate to nothing. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people, myself included, to wrap their mind around of how I thought we had this amazing once in a lifetime type relationship. And then now I'm nothing. Like you're totally okay with like never talking to me again. That just did not compute with me for the longest time. I just, especially with my first relationship, because our life was so unique. I mean, we lived off the grid. We had what I thought was like the shared dream to kind of build these off the grid type cabins. And, we got along famously. I'm like, I don't understand. And then trying to realize that he was living a double life that whole time. And that I think that he was potentially poisoning me or drugging me. It was just, it was just so wild. I mean, the whole thing was just so wild. But I remember thinking like, how many people are going to want to live this dream that we have? I really thought it was so unique to us. And then it wasn't until like years later when I really began digging into all of this and realizing that they have this false self and that they're con artists and chameleons and they change. That's all of that future faking, that none of it was real. Realizing that, oh no, that dream for him wasn't real. Like it was just, he was mirroring back to me what he thought that I wanted. It's really, it's devastating. Yeah. And Dana says, it's the hardest thing to wrap your mind around, that you were nothing after the discard and that they are okay with never talking to you again. I had such a hard time with that because it was like, I thought he was one of my best friends. It was more than a relationship. I just couldn't, like, how did we go from being so close and doing everything together to you don't care at all? I just didn't, that was hard. I could see, it feels like the chair is being kicked out from underneath you. And that's probably putting it mildly. Like it's just, you just don't even see it coming. And the pain is just so intense, so intense. But it's, I think once you realize that there is life after this, that many of your best days are still ahead of you. And, that you can move forward and that you can rebuild. that the pain's not always going to be this intense, then that really does help a lot. That's so true. Henry says the devalue starts on the first meeting with them. Yeah. Yep. And Cecilia says from soulmates to strangers. Yeah, that's really well said. I like that. That's true. It is. It's sort of like, I don't even know who you are. You know, the person that I fell in love with, the person that I thought I knew, would never do anything like what you're doing. They wouldn't live a double life. They wouldn't treat me like this. And yeah, devastating. Yeah, my research says the idea of a soulmate is a trap itself. If somebody is your soulmate, it implies that you are going to stay with them no matter what. That's a very valid point. I like that. I guess for me, I kind of view soulmates as a person that helps your soul evolve. And I feel like there's a lot of significant people in my life that I would say have been a soulmate in that context, that have helped me really grow as a person. Those soulmates haven't always all been positive. And frankly, I think maybe very few of them have been positive. So they were a soulmate in a weird, in a very much like a wake up call kind of a way. But I don't know if I believe in like that perfect kind of twin flame kind of partner. I almost think I agree with you. I think that there's a certain level of like codependency or immaturity that goes along with thinking that it's this one other person that we're meant to be with, that we're never going to leave, that we're going to be with through thick and thin. To me, that's very unhealthy. Cole says, I can't see myself ever talking to the narcissist in my life. He is such a terrible liar and betrayer. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good that you see that, because then you realize, yeah, there's no point. Like, it's a waste of your time to talk to somebody who lies and deceives and manipulates. Like, there's nothing of value or of benefit that can come from that. Yeah, Truth Seeker says, yes, they create such a unique dynamic that feels irreplaceable. They do. And it's that feeling, I think, that people have a hard time walking away from, because it's sort of like, and we confuse that intensity and that intensity with sincerity and passion. And it's all manufactured. I think that's why people tend to get caught up with scammers in general, con artists in general. When somebody's coming on so quickly and they're promising everything that you've ever wanted, it's hard to walk away from that, no matter how bad things get. But it's not real. It's not healthy. Yes, I agree completely. Sunny Day says, do not accept a relationship that is unevenly yoked. Supply and demand is no grounds for a relationship. Negative, positive is also not a ground for a relationship. Yes, I think that's a very important concept. Is this dynamic equally yoked? Is there that reciprocation? Is there that give and take? Is there that mutual trust and respect? That has to be there at the core, that mutual trust and respect. So Henry says that my ex narc killed my pet. Wow, I'm really sorry that you went through that. It's sometimes they do. I mean, you're not You're not alone in that. She says, or Henry says, yeah, that's something I can never get over. Yeah, it's devastating. I mean, it's for so many of us, like a pet is a family member. And to have somebody murder your pet is and they're so innocent. It's beyond devastating. Henry says, it was because I loved my cat more than him. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. And Sonny says, yeah, the demon narc in my life killed my dearest pet and his child's dear pets. Yeah, they just don't care. You know, they there's no attachment there to anybody. It's not just us. They don't attach to their children. They don't attach to animals. Like they don't attach. Like they're not capable of attaching to people in any way. Mike says, should narcissists be punished for their actions or do we keep letting them get away with it? I think they should be punished for their actions, and for sure. And I think those of us that haven't like gone after them aren't doing so in order to like let them get away with it. It's that the law hasn't really caught up to like emotional and psychological abuse or behavior that's this extreme. It's a lot of this stuff is hard to prove, and um, there's just a lot more awareness that needs to happen with all of this. That's a great way to say it. SG says, yeah, they attach to people like a post-it note, and that's all. Yep. Yep, I agree. Trisha says if they kill a pet, they'd probably be capable of killing a person. Yes. Yes. Anything, if a person's killing any innocent anything, creature especially, that's like a big, big, big red flag warning sign. So it's not a big leap for them to go from killing, hurting animals to hurting people. Fly Free says, please report animal cruelty. Yes, I agree. And that would be something that you could report. Or if the animal is being abused, ideally it's just getting away from abusive people. If your animals are being abused, put them at a friend's house. If the children are being abused, try to get them out of the house. If you're being abused, please try to get away. Like these people, they cause damage. They don't, like there's just that ripple effect to all of their behavior. Bear says he just ordered my last black tank top. I think they like print it in batches. But okay, is the tank for you? If it's for you, you'll have to send me a picture. Or like post it if you do order like mugs or t-shirts or whatever, either email me. I'm just curious. Like I won't post it anywhere unless you want me to. But let me know. Like email it to me or put it in the live chat if you can. I think that would be kind of fun. Tammy says, my stepdad killed many of our pets. It was a control thing. Like, see what I can do and what I'll do to you. He threatened us constantly with a gun to our head. Yeah. Amber says, hey, Dana, I wrote a poem. Were you aware? You were the narcissist's meal. I will email it to you if that's okay. Yeah, that would be great. I would love to get that. Yeah, I worked with a gal at a domestic violence shelter. This was years ago. She had gotten involved with a guy who, of course, started off like, Prince Charming, and she was young. He was like twice her age, and became incredibly physically abusive. He shot her dog in the head in front of her, and he would periodically take her out into the middle of nowhere, and he would have her dig a grave, like her grave. And he would tell her, you should call your daughter. I'm going to kill you now. You're never going to see her again. And she never knew if he was serious or not. And so she would dig this grave, and then, he would laugh hysterically oftentimes, and then they'd get back in the car and then drive home. It was awful. He had put a gun in her mouth so many times, threatening to kill her. He had ended up knocking out he had knocked out multiple teeth with the gun, shoving it in her mouth over the years. Awful. So it's, really, really these people, when you're dealing with a person that's sadistic, that enjoys inflicting pain, who has no empathy, and they have no remorse, that means they have no conscience. And not only that, but they enjoy hurting other people. Like, that is evil. It's evil, evil, evil. And there is no depth. And I think it's so important for people to realize there are no limits. When a person has no conscience, it's not like they're going to think, oh, well, I'm just going to be really awful to my significant other, but I'll be an emotionally available, compassionate, considerate parent. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, they don't have empathy and remorse. Like, they truly don't care. So yeah, Lou says it's very sick. Elise says, yeah, my ex was building the Prince Charming fantasy. I said, I don't need all that, but he continued until I bought into the fantasy. Yeah. And they can do it in such a way where they can make it seem like you must have issues to think that their behavior is not normal. Like they lay it on so thick. And if you start protesting, like, this feels a little off, or this isn't comfortable, and they're like, you know what? You have low self-esteem. What did this last relationship do to you? I mean, I just want to love you, and I just want to be there for you. And, what do you think, that you don't deserve this? I mean, do you feel like that you're not worthy of this? And I don't know what this last person did to you, but I could, and then they just keep laying it on thick. And then, of course, it plants that seed in the target's mind of, well, maybe I do have issues with self-esteem and commitment and relationships. And maybe this love bombing really is healthy. And maybe I can't just enjoy it because of my issues with my past. And it's nope. It's mind manipulation at its finest is what that is. If it feels off, it's because it's off. It's so important to just turn inward and pay attention. If it feels off, it's off. And here's something else that people tend to do. And I get it, but it's a something that we need to be aware of, is when a person feels confused, when they experience behavior from a person and they're like, boy, this is really strange, they tend to then turn to that person for clarification. Like, boy, this is really strange that your ex, or all these women, or all these men are texting you. Instead of seeing that as squirrely behavior, and like leaving, they'll be like, oh, there's all of this squirrely behavior. Can you please explain this to me? But trying to get clarity from a person who's actively trying to manipulate you is just going to lead to more manipulation. And same with love bombing. Like, well, this feels like it's a little bit too much too soon. And I don't know where this is coming from. It's basically what we're saying is, I'm really confused by your behavior. You're acting like a teenager in love, and we're in our 40s. And it's too much too soon. Like, you're telling me that you love me. You don't even know me. And so we're looking for clarity for that, and then they give us their quote unquote clarity, which is actually more manipulation. So it's a really bad and ineffective idea to continue to look for clarity from somebody who's intentionally trying to confuse you. So if a person has confusing behavior, they're not the one that you want to go to try to get clarity about what's going on, because they're trying to confuse you. Yes. Helene says, and you don't ask the person who hurt you to try to fix you. She says, I did that for 3 years. Yep. So Sassy says, can you go over a little bit about what a sociopath is? Very similar to a narcissist, except the main differences are narcissists need that validation and approval, whereas, and they tend to be grandiose, whereas sociopaths, well, and many narcissists tend to be very self-absorbed and arrogant and egotistical. Sociopaths are known, they are more of the emotional con artists of the world. They tend to come across as superficially charming. They're very exploitative. They don't need that validation or approval or acceptance. Like, they're con artists, and they just go from person to person and they don't care. Whereas narcissists will try to do damage control and save their public image. A sociopath might do that, but only in order to continue like their con. There's a lot of overlap between like narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths. So frankly, to me, it's all just different degrees of people that have, and narcissism is the core of sociopaths and psychopaths. So it's all of that, like that blinding degree of selfishness of whatever they want to have, whatever they want, they should get. It's selfish, it's entitled, they feel justified, lack of empathy, lack of remorse. It's all about them all of the time. Dana says, can a narcissist and a sociopath be together? I think my ex-husband is with a sociopath now. Yeah, they can. It's, it depends on kind of what they're using each other for. So, but yeah, it does happen. I think probably it happens quite a bit. I mean, normally narcissists tend to need, they need that validation and approval. A sociopath can give that all day long. They can do the love bombing, they can give that false flattery, and continue to build up a narcissist, but they're only going to do so if they've got some sort of gain from that. Generally, money or a place to stay or social status or public image, that kind of thing. So let's see. Inner Fire says she went out to eat at a restaurant with a quote unquote friend, said it felt gross and like I was on a date. Yeah, it's awkward if a person's trying to slide out of the friend zone. like slide into the relationship zone by pretending to be a friend. Like that's icky and gross, especially if you don't see it coming. And then next thing you know, you're in a situation like that and you're like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know where this came from. I not interested. I thought I had made that. Like, I have not given out any signs whatsoever that I am interested. And yet this person is continuing to just push this boundary until I become incredibly uncomfortable. Shell says, what about a narcissist who has a narcissistic mother? Well, it's very common for either narcissist or codependents to have some sort of like problematic parent, whether it's a mother or a father. So it's, you know, not an excuse for their behavior. And sometimes they can have awesome parents and still be incredibly personality disordered. I've had a few people in my life that I knew from like middle school. I'm like, wow, and I was there all the time. I was like, wow, I would give anything to have your family. And they were total, like, just awful, 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 awful. So who's to say? Truth Seeker says they have so much endurance in their love bombing. Yeah, they can. They can play the long game. Like if they're out to, get married or to have a baby or to get somebody pregnant or what have you before they reveal themselves, they can lay it on thick until they get what they want. Iman asked, the people that I was talking about, were they spoiled? One was incredibly spoiled, which is also considered a form of child abuse by many child psychologists, which I would agree, because the child's not learning to stand on their own. They're learning to, basically they become bratty and then they have that bratty entitlement their whole life. But one was spoiled, one wasn't. And actually there's been a few that I wouldn't, that weren't. I mean, who knows? I mean, I only saw what I saw. Who knows what else could have gone on without me seeing, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Cecilia says, my cousin once told me that my life looked perfect from the outside. Little did she know that I was just a doll, a possession to my parents. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's one thing for me or for anybody else to look inward and be like, oh, wow, it's, you're so lucky you have this, but it's being on the inside of it's a totally different story. Yeah, I dated one guy for a while. His issue was his parents were just emotionally unavailable, and physically unavailable. His father had a farm and his mother had emphysema and was really sick from a really young from like a really young age, from like her early 40s, and couldn't do much of anything other than stay in bed. And so he pretty much grew up without parents. He raised himself. He was an only child, and um he was very sad and lonely, and he was angry and narcissistic and just felt like the world had cheated him, and that he didn't, why should he be caring and nice to people when he didn't get that, was kind of his attitude. It was sad, and I stayed with him a lot longer than I should have, because I felt I'm like, this is very clear, like why this guy is the way that he is. And of course, there were a lot of great things about him that I really enjoyed. And that was another big reason that I stayed. But at the end, it was like, I can't, um, you know, there was no empathy and no remorse. And even though he wasn't like actively abusive, he he would never say he was sorry, and he would never acknowledge, like, I was never entitled to have, I was never allowed, not even entitled, I was never allowed to have hurt feelings, or like, he just didn't get it. If like, I don't know, I can't even describe, like, it didn't get it. Like, if I was too tired, or if it was anything that he didn't want to do, like, he'd get upset. And there just was no give and take. So I guess what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter why people are the way that they are. What matters is whether or not it's what we're looking for in a relationship. And it's tragic. And I wish that guy light and love. And I hope that he, finds whatever peace he can in this life. But I couldn't be a part of it anymore. So, let's see. Okay, let me read some of these questions. This is from Sherry. Sherry says, "Dear Dana, why is he still so angry 3 years later? He got what he wanted, which was to leave our 25-year marriage and marry his girlfriend. I remain no contact. However, on those rare occasions that I contact him regarding one of our college-age children, he still sounds so angry. Footnote, his tone usually softens when his wife isn't around. I'm glad his crazy behavior is no longer my everyday reality." Well, my guess is that he's angry. He's probably more angry in front of her because he's probably told her, he's made himself the victim of you, would be my guess. And so that's probably why he's seeming that he's the one that's been wronged in front of her. And also, too, a person's thoughts and actions always have to line up. And even with narcissists. And so this is why they tend to act in very erratic ways, because if his action is going to be that of anger, he's going to have to justify that action. He's going to have to find a thought that matches that action. So he can't be angry with you if you're the victim of him. That doesn't compute. But he can be angry with you if you've done something wrong. So he's spun things around in his mind in order to get his thought to be in an alignment with his action. So that would be my guess as to what's going on there. Yes, let's see. This is from Chris. "Hi, Dana. My biggest struggle is having no closure or answers and being abandoned in silent treatment by the person I love 3 months after pouring my heart out. For 2 years, he told me I was his soulmate, his best friend, the only person that ever understood him, the love of his life, and he painted a beautiful picture of us and how he wanted to marry me. Anytime I would try to move forward or confirm these promises, he'd backtrack. This last time I asked real questions, I was given the silent treatment. I understand that narcissists do this to punish you. However, I'm still struggling with the obsessive thoughts going over and over everything I said and how he could just ignore me with no response. I can't understand how the person he vowed to be with forever could flat out abandon me. I'm just so crushed. How do I move past this, and how do I learn to get closure for myself since I'll never get it from him? Thank you." Yeah, it is devastating how a person, like we've been talking about all night tonight, how a person can go from, was it Cecilia who said, from soulmate to stranger, like that. And I think it's hard to understand it because there's not much to understand. There's nothing that you did. And of course, whenever we experience this, it's normal. It's normal for us to rehash and think about, okay, because it doesn't compute for us. It's like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. So it's like, normally there's a cause and effect. Like, I did something, then this happened. But when you're dealing with a person, with a narcissist, or anybody with this like kind of twisted thinking, there's not a lot of cause and effect there. And my guess is the only thing that you might have done would be to question him or challenge him in any way that was either real or perceived. So, and sometimes with a narcissist, even saying something like, do you want pizza for dinner, can be perceived as an attack, or so like you never know where they are because you're not sharing the same we're not sharing the same reality with them. So it's impossible to kind of untangle their thinking. But the silent treatment, all we know for sure is the silent treatment is designed to punish, it's designed to hurt, and it's designed to second guess, for a person to start second guessing themselves. It's a grooming behavior that's done to say, if you do this, if you challenge me or you question me, this is what's going to happen. And yeah, that silent treatment feels like you're a sheet twisting in the wind because you just don't know if they're going to come back or what's going on, or if there's, it's awful, awful. So I highly always recommend support groups to people. I think that's where a ton of validation and insight and healing come from. And I also highly recommend getting closure for yourself can happen in support groups. And so here's another thing I'm a big fan of, because closure it never happens with a person who's actively trying to confuse you, right? To write a letter to him. And when you're done with that, and I want you to pour your heart out. And then I want you to take it, and then I want you to invite over anybody that's part of your support system, like friends, family, whoever. If you're comfortable reading it out loud, read it out loud. If you're not, that's fine too. Take any items that remind you of him, that hold kind of this negative energy or this uncomfortable, this tension. If you have a fire pit or a fireplace or something like that, then burn those items. And that's your closure. Your closure is with you being with people that are in your support system, or even by yourself with a fireplace or a fire pit, burning this stuff, releasing it, realizing this is your closure, is releasing this, being free from this. This is pathologically dysfunctional behavior. The only closure is just being free of it. So I hope that helps. Let's see. And okay, here's the last question. It says, Dear Dana, I'm coming clean up front and letting you know that I'm not a victim of narcissistic abuse, but I am in a relationship with a woman who was with a narcissist for years. When she told me what she went through, it was a lot for me to process. I went home that night and Googled dozens of articles, videos, and books. Your website and videos helped me tremendously. After realizing how much there is to know about narcissistic abuse, I am very confused by her behavior. She is very hot and cold towards me, even though I know she likes me. She sometimes doesn't want me to meet up. She sometimes doesn't want me to meet up for weeks. She never reaches out to me and often cancels. But when we're together, she seems in love and we have a wonderful time. I'm not ready to give up on her, but it does hurt a lot when she seems to, quote unquote, go away somewhere. What would you recommend your listeners tell any new romantic partners so they can understand the thinking process or their somewhat odd, no offense, behaviors? How would you recommend I behave so that I don't hurt her, but also don't get hurt? Should we approach this relationship differently than couples where one person was not abused? I know this isn't a typical question you get about recovery, but I'm hoping your answers will help those who are recovering not to scare the good potential partners. Thank you so much for what you do. Okay, so at a minimum, it sounds like she's not ready to date. And it's her behavior. Frankly, her behavior doesn't sound like somebody who's been through narcissistic abuse. I'm not saying that she hasn't. I'm just saying it's normally the opposite. Normally, that somebody that's been through narcissistic abuse tends to either isolate and not want anything to do with anybody, or they tend to really latch on to their partner and have a hard time. They want to spend a lot of time with them. So, but regardless, her behavior is problematic. Whether she was abused or whether she wasn't abused, it's problematic. So if she's not ready to date, or if she's just playing games, it's not healthy for you. So anybody that's kind of doing that, whenever I hear the words hot and cold, that's a big red flag that there's a problem. So I would encourage you to not kind of give this quote unquote odd or erratic behavior a free pass because she's saying that she was abused in the past. Because here's the other thing, every single person I've talked to, my experiences as well, abusive people tend to always say that they are the victim of abuse. So I have always kind of like, I wouldn't be so quick to let your guard down and necessarily, I know it sounds terrible, but necessarily take all that for face value, because her behavior is regardless of what, again, regardless of whether she was or wasn't abused, her behavior is not really workable behavior. And she really needs to work on herself before she even tries to start dating. It's concerning me. If anything, the way that I'm seeing this go down in your email is that you're the one that's twisting yourself into this emotional pretzel and walking on eggshells and trying to make this relationship work. And she's running really hot and cold. So this is not a healthy dynamic for you at all. So, and like I said, I don't know if I would say that, and you shouldn't have to twist yourself into an emotional pretzel even if your partner has been abused. Like they need to really get to the place where they're okay enough with themselves and with dating before they start to date. It's not fair and it's not going to work to expect that other person to twist themselves into an emotional pretzel to be everything that they need to help them heal. This is kind of this whole like white knight syndrome that we were talking about. If this gal's got a bunch of issues, she needs to work those out before she tries the date. Not all victims of narcissistic abuse act like her. And like I said, frankly, very few do. I've never really heard of any that do. So, yeah, I would encourage you to think about what are your deal breakers and to be very, very cautious and careful. Frankly, run. If you're finding yourself walking on eggshells and turning yourself into an emotional pretzel, trying to hold on to a relationship, that's a sign that you need to get out of there. It's not healthy, regardless of whatever she has been through. So I hope that helps. I'll be curious to see what other people have to say. Yeah, people in the chat are saying, yeah, it sounds like the pity ploy to me. And yeah. Trisha says, yeah, many narcissists have been victims of narc abuse, oftentimes with the parent. Yes, they have. This is why there's no excuse for abuse. Like, people can go through this abusive behavior with a parent or with a relationship, but it doesn't make it okay for them to turn around and then abuse somebody else. We all have choices. So Inner Fire says, how do you tell your story without it being a pity ploy? I think the healthy way to do it is to wait, and that trust has to be there with that other person before we start opening up. So there needs to be that established, mutual trust and support. You're enjoying this other person, you're enjoying their company, and you're talking about, when people, like over time start talking about, oh, this is my relationship with my ex, or these are significant events in my life, talking about it in a very matter of fact way. And I don't expect, I did, let me rephrase that. The relationship that I got out of after my relationship with Jack, when that ended, I got involved with another guy, like about a year later. And I was terrified to date. And I unfairly put a lot of at first, like, and put a lot of the burden on him to be, because I was like, I'm very damaged, I'm very vulnerable, I'm very just be please be good to me. And I put a lot of that on him. Like, I really need for you to be honest and good to me. I don't think I could handle going through anything even close to what I went through again. And then I kind of realized not only was that not fair, but it wasn't even reasonable. Like, I needed to be good to me and I needed to walk away. Like, he was going to act however he was going to act, but I needed to love myself enough in order to walk away. It wasn't reasonable for me to be like, I need you to just be good to me and love me, um, and treat me good. And then if you don't, then I'm just going to collapse. Because that was my original thinking. But then it was like, no, 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 wait a minute. Like, you just do you. Like, let's just have a normal relationship. If this doesn't work for me, then I'm going to love me enough to just leave. So that's the difference. And, you know, and I think too, by the time you get to a certain age in life, most everybody's gone through some major, like, game changing stuff, like a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, an abusive relationship. They've had an abusive parent. They've got some like major stuff that they're carrying around with them. And so when people start talking about their life, we tend to think we're so alone in this and we have this like, massive thing that's going to scare somebody off. But most people can handle it. Like, they've got their own stuff too. Dora says, Dana, I'm 50 and I'm afraid of starting over. I've never admitted that before now. I stay hoping he will be nice. I know better. I know better. Yeah. It's scary. It's scary to start over, but at the same time, I think it's also scary to never get started. And when you realize that a relationship with a narcissist is, you haven't even started. I mean, there's no relationship there, then that can be equally scary. But change is always scary. Change is always scary. And, you know, it's whatever. I don't know if there is necessarily like a right answer. It's such an individual decision, because leaving these kinds of relationships, they it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to leave and it's a lot to rebuild. It can be done, but it's, it's an individual decision, an individual thing. I would encourage you, here's what I would encourage you to do. So first of all, 50 is not old. Like, you make it seem like you're 90. 50 at the at any age, at any stage, I think it can be really good. Now would be a good time for you to kind of start like filling sandbags and like shoring up the dams, right? So now would be a good time to maybe see about getting a separate account, or see about making some new friends, see about cultivating some new habits. This way you're building your own life. And so if you do decide to leave, it's not going to feel like it's this giant void, because you're already enjoying your life. Like, you've already been able to be independent enough that you have your own money, you've got your own friends, you've got your own hobbies, that you're not so heavily invested in just him. And that goes a long way. Then it won't be like you're starting over from ground zero. Now it's just you're healing from a relationship and you're moving forward. Yeah, my research says I never felt so lonely as I did when I was in a relationship with a narcissist. Yep. It's so true, because there is no relationship. Yeah, Shell says, I am middle aged. It's better to be on my own with my family and friends right now than suffering through another day of that messed up relationship with a narcissist. Yeah, it's so, so true. It's so when you see that there's nothing there, it's a lot easier to walk away from. Adriana says, I'm ready to meet new people and friends again, but I am tight on time and I'm hesitant, even though I trust my gut now and my boundaries are so much better. Any advice on how to make the leap? Yeah. Okay. So you probably heard me talk about it before. I'm a huge fan of meetup.com. I encourage people, look in your area. It's not a dating site. It's for people to meet new people and do new things. Join like a dozen or so, maybe even more meetups in your area. You don't have to go to anything, frankly, that you sign up for. You're just joining those groups. And there's groups, most places have meetups about anything and everything, from going to the dog park to entrepreneurship to a writing group to Italian language to people that just like to outdoor adventure groups to uh, you know people that I mean they've got groups like 30 somethings, 20 somethings, 40 somethings, 50 somethings, um, I'm sure any age. They have men's groups, they've got you name it. There's just tons of groups. Join a bunch of those different groups and then sign up for like what they're doing. And then if something appeals to you, you can even suggest meetups to the different leaders of those groups and say, hey, would you guys be up for considering, or could I help host a meetup? Could we meet up for, I don't know, Thai food on, Thursday nights where maybe we eat Thai food and we go play trivia somewhere. So it's, or you pizza and trivia or what have you, where it's a few hours once a week. And one of the reasons I like Meetup so much too is it's generally a bunch of people that are in transition in their own life. Either they're new to town, they're newly married, they're newly divorced, they have a baby, maybe they just lost the child, they just lost a parent, um, they were just got divorced, they're a widow or a widower, something's going on, and or they're just realizing, you know what, I have been depressed for a long time and it's time for me to get back into life, and they just want to get out there and start doing new things. So it's a great way to meet people and to try new things that you might not try otherwise. And the benefit too is those people often, they realize that they're going to be meeting total strangers every single meetup. There's different people at every single meetup, and people go there. They're generally friendly and outgoing, and it can be a great way to start meeting new people again. And then too, the good thing is you can leave. It's all within you. Like, you control this. So if you decide, boy, these are not my people, like, or I'm getting a really weird vibe or what have you, then you can just leave. So, I mean, I would say really pretty much all of my friends that I've met in Michigan have been through Meetup. Um, I've met like a wide variety of people, and I really just enjoy all of them. And they're all just very, very different. So, um, oh, that's fun. Richard says, I found a group on Meetup to teach expats to learn to speak Dutch. I'm going next week for the first time. At least that's the plan. See, I couldn't even make something like that up. Like, that's what you'll find on Meetup is, yeah, teach expats to learn to speak Dutch. Stuff that you're like, what on earth? That sounds fascinating. Where do I sign? Right. And then like people go, it's a riot. Like, there's just a lot of very different things out there. So it's it's fun. It's fun. I've had several people email me uh, with their meetup experiences. And it's one guy emailed me, it was a few weeks ago, And he ended up running into an old friend from high school. And he's like, had I not taken your advice and gone on to meetup.com, it's like, I would have never reconnected with this guy. They get along famously, and he's just having a blast. So yeah. And Henry says, staying away from dating sites, they're a breeding ground for nut jobs. That's very true. Dating sites is not where you want to go to test like your boundaries or your gut instinct. You really can't take anybody for face value on a dating site. It sounds paranoid and bitter and jaded. I realize this, but it's true. Like, you just really, really can't. It's too easy. Predators know it's just too easy for people to pretend to be something that they're not. And there's a lot of like lonely, vulnerable people on dating sites, and predators know this. So it's the other part about Meetup that I really like is it's a great way to really start testing out your boundaries, because it's open to the general public. And some of the people that you meet, you might really like, and some you might not like at all. But it's a nice, safe way without the pressure of dating and without all of that baggage that comes with dating. Like, you're just meeting people for bingo or Thai food or learning to speak Dutch. And if you connect, you connect. And if you don't, you don't. And that's fine. So it can be a really great transition back into life and practicing your boundaries. So Maria says, some people say that dating sites are narc central, but aren't narcs everywhere. They are everywhere, but I would say they're disproportionately on dating sites, because predators in general they're after vulnerable people, and they know the word has gotten out that a lot of vulnerable, lonely people are on dating sites. And you can learn a lot about a person based on their profile. Like, you can really kind of tell how much money they have, um, what they value. People oftentimes tell way too much what they're looking for in another partner. It just makes it really, really easy for a predator to create this fake identity and then swoop in and con somebody. So, at a minimum, with online dating, you want to meet in a neutral place. Never, ever let somebody know where you live, at least for not like the first month. So don't let them know where you live. You meet at a neutral place. You meet for coffee the first time. You let somebody know where you're going. And, you for sure want to talk to them over the phone before you actually go and meet them. Like, you'll really tell if there's chemistry there or not over the phone. And just go really slow. Go really slow. So, yeah, two of my dear friends that I met through Meetup, they met through Meetup, and they were both in big time life transition stages. And now they're very much in love and live together and they're like the best couple ever. So it's a great way to meet people in a very non-threatening way. And if it leads to more, it leads to more. But if it doesn't, it doesn't, But the cool thing is you get to see who people really are in a meetup setting. And then you also have the added benefit of being in a group. So you can kind of see how they interact with other people as well. Gamer Christina says, do you have any helpful or inspirational words to stop me from playing the narcissist game? For instance, when my narc says bad things about me, it makes me want to prove him wrong. The only inspirational words I can give you are the words no contact. That's the only thing that stops the insanity and stops that wanting to fight and to prove them wrong and be like, no, dude, like, you're the one with the problem. And yeah, there can never be peace in your life when there's a crazy maker in it. You've got to do damage control and limit the amount of contact they have to you. If you have children with them and you can't go no contact, then, getting some sort of talking to an attorney, seeing about a neutral third party that can run interference where all of their communication has to go through this neutral third party and it has to be about the children only. So you don't have to, they don't need to have access to you 24/7 if you have children with them. You don't have to put up with the harassment and the bullying and the abuse and the nonsense just because. So, yeah, it's just no contact. Something that has helped me though to really, really, really realize their pathology is I view it in many ways as this helps me emotionally detach, is thinking about it in terms of, so like when I used to work with people, my grandmother lived with us and she had dementia. So, and then when I was a lot younger, I worked with people that had dementia and Alzheimer's, and I've worked with a wide range of people. When a person has dementia or Alzheimer's, one of the signs is like radical personality changes. So they can become aggressive, they can become accusatory, they can become, a very different person than the person that or that their family once knew. And what helped me was realizing, like with the narcissist, like it's in many ways it's like dealing with the person that has Alzheimer's. Like they're going to act the way that they're going to act, and it has nothing to do with me. That's them. That's 100% on them. I can't change it. I can't stop it. All I can do is distance myself from it and not take it personally. Just like when that patient with Alzheimer's might call me all kinds of names, I would tell them I wouldn't get upset, because it's like I know that they're not in the right state of their mind and that they don't even know what they're saying. And so when I was dealing with the narcissist that would become like verbally abusive, I would tell myself the same, like, I'm not even going to take this personally. They're out of their mind. They're like functionally psychotic. This is not about me. This is about them. Just like I'm not going to argue with that patient that has Alzheimer's and try to prove to them why I didn't steal something, or why I wasn't in their room in the middle of the night, or I can't prove their delusion isn't true, because it's their delusion. So it was a lot easier to emotionally detach when it's like, this is them, this is their pathology, their delusion stuff. Like it's not me. So that's kind of what helped me. I hope that helps. And remember too, like narcissists say this stuff, it's designed, they're not saying it because it's true. Like they're saying this to try to grind you down. So yeah, Dora says the narcissist in my life never asked for money. It just drained me emotionally and mentally. Heather says, I like the quote Dana said once, that I'm not easily stressed, impressed, or intimidated. Yeah, that one gives me a lot of power. I like that too. Yeah, getting a mantra of some sort can really help. That's a good one. You can run with that one if you want. I am not easily stressed, impressed, or intimidated. No contact. Bye-bye. So, okay, guys, we are over the 3-hour mark. So I'm going to call it a night, but thank you so much for joining. Let's do it. Let's end in a little meditation like we've been doing. So, what we've been doing is, if everybody just wants to just close your eyes and just be in the moment and just relax, just be here, just feel all of the tension. Just leave your body. Just take a deep breath in and let it all go. Just be here in the moment and feel at peace. And if you can feel your heart beating, that can be very powerful. Take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. And just visualize a ball of white healing energy in the middle of your chest. And it's radiating and pulsing and glowing. And it's beautiful, healing, wonderful energy. And feel that ball getting bigger and bigger. Feel it expand through your body, down into your legs, out into your arms, up through your head. You're just a being of light. And then just imagine that healing energy going out to others, in the forum and in the chat, and people that you know and care about in your life, and anybody that you think might need some healing energy tonight, just sending them that healing energy. Just giving them a big energetic hug. And then giving some of that healing energy back to yourself, and giving yourself a big energetic hug, and realizing that you do matter, and that you are important, and that you're worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. That these are basic ways that human beings should be treated. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and just know that you are here, and that in this moment you are safe. And that you can move forward into healing. So, Doug, thank you so much again for the donation. It is for sure, like, not expected, very much appreciated. I just want you to know that. Oh, Templeton, Kitty. Kitty is stuck in here. Let's see if you can see him. Kitty, Let me see if I can move the camera. Maybe. Kitty. Huh? I'm so sorry. Now you're trapped. Now you're trapped. So, oh no, now I don't know how to get this camera. Oh wait, here it goes. Okay. You could see the vacuum cleaner too. How delightful. I didn't realize that was in the corner. Okay, so on that note, thank you everybody so much for being here and for joining me. And again, if you have a question, you can feel free to email me. I'll do my best to get it on the air at deardana@thriveafterabuse.com. And I will see you guys next week. So take care. And Doug, it's fantastic to see you here. I think you've been missed. It's been a while since we've seen you around. So you guys take care, and just as always, just lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye. If I can figure out how to end this.